Long before written history could fully capture human achievement, ancient civilizations left behind traces that continue to puzzle us today. Towering monuments rise from barren landscapes, carved with astonishing accuracy and purpose that remains uncertain. Deep within caves and ruins, hidden chambers reveal alignments with the stars, as if guided by a knowledge we struggle to comprehend. These places are more than relics of the past. They are questions carved in stone. Who built them and why? How did they achieve such precision without modern tools? Each theory brings us closer, yet never close enough. The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. The ancient world was not simple. It was a realm of secrets waiting to be uncovered. High in the Andean highlands, not far from Cusco, lies the remarkable archaeological complex of Tipon, a place that at first glance appears serene and almost deceptively simple. Terrace slopes cascade down the mountainside, lined with carefully carved stone channels through which water flows endlessly as if time itself has failed to disturb their rhythm. Yet beneath this tranquil surface lies one of the most sophisticated hydraulic systems ever created by the Inca civilization, a system whose precision continues to challenge modern understanding. At the heart of this mystery is what researchers now refer to as the Tipon water channel gradient, a concept that encapsulates not only the perfect control of water flow, but also the astonishing craftsmanship that made it possible. And among all its features, none is more baffling than the stonework itself, cut-shaped and assembled with such exactness that water passes through without leakage, as if the stones were fused rather than placed. To understand the magnitude of this achievement, one must first consider the fundamental challenge faced by the Inca engineers controlling water in a mountainous environment. Water by nature is unpredictable. It accelerates downhill, erodes surfaces, and finds weakness in any structure. To harness it requires precise calculation of gradient, the subtle angle at which water can flow smoothly without gaining destructive force or stagnating into useless stillness. At Tipon, this balance is achieved with extraordinary finesse. The channels are neither too steep nor too flat. They are calibrated with such sensitivity that water glides through them in a continuous, stable stream. Even after centuries of earthquakes, erosion, and environmental change, the system remains operational. This alone would be enough to earn admiration. But it is only the beginning of the mystery. The real enigma emerges when one looks closely at the channels themselves. Each waterway is lined with stones that fit together with uncanny precision. Unlike many ancient constructions that rely on mortar or binding materials, the Inca used none. Instead, they shaped each stone so perfectly that it locks into its neighbors, forming a seamless conduit. The joints between stones are so tight that even a thin blade cannot be inserted between them. And yet these are not small decorative elements, they are functional hydraulic structures designed to carry flowing water day and night. In such conditions, even the smallest imperfection would lead to leakage, erosion, or eventual collapse. But at Tipon, the channels remain watertight. This level of precision raises a profound question: how did the Inca achieve it? The tools available to them were by conventional standards extremely limited. They had no iron or steel tools capable of cutting stone with high precision. They had no advanced measuring instruments, no laser levels, no mathematical blueprints in the modern sense. And yet the stones of Tipon exhibit characteristics that rival machine-cut masonry. Their surfaces are smooth, their edges sharp, and their angles exact. Some stones are shaped to accommodate subtle curves in the channels, guiding water gently around bends without turbulence. Others are carved with slight inclines that maintain consistent flow speed. The craftsmanship is not merely aesthetic, it is deeply functional engineered to control water at a level that suggests a sophisticated understanding of fluid dynamics. One theory proposes that the Inca used a combination of abrasion techniques and patient manual labor. By grinding stones against each other with sand and water, they could gradually shape surfaces with remarkable smoothness. Over time, this method could produce tight-fitting joints. However, this explanation does not fully account for the uniformity and scale observed at Tipon. The consistency across multiple channels and terraces implies not only skill, but also a standardized method, something akin to a system of quality control that ensured each piece met exact specifications. Another possibility is that the Inca possessed a practical experience-based understanding of geometry and measurement. Rather than relying on abstract calculations, they may have used empirical methods, testing, adjusting, and refining their work until the desired result was achieved. Water itself may have served as a measuring tool. By observing how it flowed through a partially completed channel, they could identify imperfections and correct them. This iterative process, repeated countless times, could lead to the level of precision seen at Tipon. Yet even this does not fully explain the near-perfect sealing of the joints. What makes the stonework particularly astonishing is its resistance to leakage. In modern engineering, watertight structures typically rely on sealants gaskets or synthetic materials to prevent water from escaping. At Tipon, none of these exist. The stones alone perform this function. Their surfaces are so finely matched that capillary action, the tendency of water to seep through small gaps, is effectively eliminated. The channels behave almost like continuous carved troughs, even though they are composed of individual blocks. This suggests an understanding of not just shape and fit, but also the microscopic behavior of water. Moreover, the durability of this system adds another layer of mystery. Over hundreds of years, the stones have been subjected to temperature fluctuations, seismic activity, and biological growth. These factors would typically cause joints to loosen or surfaces to degrade. Yet the channels of Tipon remain intact. Water continues to flow as it did centuries ago, with no significant leakage or structural failure. This longevity implies that the Inca did not merely achieve precision, they achieved resilience. Their construction methods accounted for the passage of time in a way that many modern systems struggle to replicate. The broader hydraulic network at Tipon further amplifies the significance of this stonework. Water is distributed across multiple terraces, feeding agricultural plots and ceremonial fountains. Each outlet delivers a consistent flow, suggesting that the entire system is finely balanced. Any leakage in the channels would disrupt this balance, reducing pressure and altering distribution. The fact that such disruptions do not occur indicates that the integrity of the stone channels is essential to the system's overall function. In other words, the precision of the stonework is not an isolated feature, it is the foundation upon which the entire hydraulic system depends. There is also a cultural dimension to consider. For the Inca, water was not merely a resource, it was sacred. It was associated with life, fertility, and divine power. The act of controlling water, guiding it through stone channels, shaping its flow, may have held symbolic significance. The perfection of the channels could reflect a desire to honor this sacred element, to create a system that was not only functional, but also harmonious with the natural world. In this sense, the precision of the stonework becomes more than a technical achievement. It becomes an expression of world-view. And yet, despite all these interpretations, the core mystery remains unresolved. Modern engineers can analyze the channels, measure their gradients, and admire their construction. They can propose theories and conduct experiments. But there is still no definitive explanation for how the Inca achieved such extraordinary precision with the tools and knowledge available to them. The stones of Tipon continue to challenge assumptions about what is possible without advanced technology. Standing at Tipon today, watching water flow silently through channels that have endured for centuries, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe. The system works not imperfectly, but flawlessly. The gradient is exact, the distribution is balanced, and the stonework with its seamless joints and watertight integrity defies easy explanation. It is a reminder that human ingenuity does not always follow the paths we expect, and that some of the greatest achievements of the past still hold secrets we have yet to fully understand. In the end, the Tipon water channel gradient is more than a technical concept. It is a window into a lost way of thinking, one that combined observation craftsmanship and perhaps a deeper connection to nature. And at its heart lies the most compelling mystery of all. How did a civilization without modern tools create stone channels so precise that even water, the most persistent and elusive of elements, could not find a way to escape? How do you think the Inca achieved this level of precision, lost technology, or knowledge we still don't fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden within the sun-scorched plains of Menorca, the ancient settlement of Capacorb stands as one of the most haunting and enigmatic remnants of the prehistoric Talayotic culture. Dating back to roughly 1,200 years before the Common Era, this sprawling complex of stone structures, towers, and dwellings tells a story that has yet to be fully understood. It is a place where silence dominates, where wind sweeps endlessly across weathered stone, and where the past feels both distant and disturbingly present. Unlike civilizations that left behind inscriptions, scrolls, or monuments filled with written language, the people who built Capacorb vanished without leaving a single decipherable word. What remains instead is something far more cryptic: architecture, as language stone, as memory and silence, as the only surviving testimony of a once thriving society. At first glance, the site appears deceptively simple, a scattering of massive stone constructions rising from the earth like relics abandoned by time itself. But as one draws closer, the illusion fades. The scale becomes overwhelming, the geometry deliberate, and the precision almost unsettling. Dominating the landscape are the Talayots, imposing tower-like structures constructed from enormous limestone blocks. Some are circular, others square, each built with a sense of intention that goes far beyond mere survival. These towers are not crude shelters. They are statements, monuments, whose purpose remains locked in mystery. For decades, archaeologists have debated their function. Were they watchtowers used to monitor the surrounding plains? Were they sacred structures aligned with celestial patterns used for rituals lost to time? Or were they symbols of authority, representing power within a stratified society? Each theory offers a possibility, yet none provides certainty. However, among all the unanswered questions, one aspect of Capacorb rises above the rest in both fascination and disbelief: the extraordinary engineering behind its construction. This is where the site transforms from an archaeological curiosity into a true enigma. The Talayots and surrounding structures are composed of massive stones, some weighing several tons, meticulously stacked without any form of mortar. At a time when metal tools were limited and advanced machinery did not exist, the builders achieved a level of precision that rivals and in some ways challenges modern engineering standards. The stones are not merely piled, they are fitted together with astonishing accuracy. Their surfaces meet so closely that even today, after more than 3,000 years, many of the joints remain tight and stable. This impossible construction raises immediate and profound questions. How were such massive stones transported across uneven terrain without wheeled vehicles capable of bearing such weight? How were they lifted and positioned with such precision? Theories suggest the use of wooden rollers, earthen ramps, ropes, and coordinated human effort. Yet even with these explanations, the level of consistency across the site is difficult to fully account for. This was not a single experimental structure, it was an entire settlement built using the same advanced techniques. That implies not only knowledge, but a system of knowledge methods refined, repeated, and passed down through generations. Even more remarkable is the structural integrity of these constructions. Without mortar to bind the stones, every block had to be placed with perfect balance. The weight of each stone contributes to the stability of the entire structure, creating a self-supporting system that has endured millennia of environmental stress. Wind erosion, seasonal temperature changes, and even subtle ground movements have failed to bring these towers down. This suggests a deep, intuitive understanding of physics of load distribution center, of gravity and friction, long before such principles were formally studied. It is engineering not written in formulas, but learned through experience and perfected through practice. Inside some of the Talayots, the mystery deepens further. Narrow passages, internal chambers, and layered stone arrangements reveal that these were not simple solid towers. They were hollow in places, designed with interior spaces that required even greater planning and precision. Constructing such internal features without collapse would have demanded not only technical skill, but also foresight. Each stone had to be placed in relation to others, anticipating how weight and pressure would behave over time. It is here that Capicorb Vel begins to feel less like a primitive settlement and more like the product of a sophisticated and highly capable culture, one whose knowledge has largely been lost. Beyond the towers, the broader layout of the settlement reinforces this impression. Circular dwellings, interconnected spaces, and boundary walls suggest a community that was both organized and intentional. This was not a random accumulation of structures. It was a designed environment. There are hints of social order, perhaps even hierarchy, embedded in the architecture itself. Some structures appear more prominent than others, possibly indicating status or specialized function. Yet without written records, these interpretations remain speculative, leaving us to reconstruct an entire society from stone alone. And then comes perhaps the greatest mystery of all: the disappearance. The Talayotic culture, which once thrived on Minorca, gradually faded from existence. There is no single moment of collapse, no clear evidence of catastrophic destruction. Instead, the decline appears gradual, almost quiet. Some scholars point to external influences, such as contact with Mediterranean civilizations like the Romans. Others suggest environmental changes that made the land less sustainable. Still others propose internal transformations within the society itself. But none of these theories fully explain the silence that followed. It is as if the people simply stepped away, leaving their creations behind. Today, Capicorb Vel stands not just as a relic of the past, but as a challenge to our understanding of history. It forces us to reconsider what ancient societies were capable of achieving. It suggests that knowledge can be gained, refined, and then completely lost, leaving behind only its results, not its methods. The stones remain perfectly balanced and enduring, but the minds that conceived them are gone. To walk among these structures is to confront a paradox. We see evidence of intelligence, organization, and technical mastery, yet we lack the context to fully understand it. The site is both revealing and concealing, offering glimpses of a sophisticated world while withholding its deepest secrets. And perhaps that is what makes Capo Corb Vel so compelling. It is not just what we see, but what we cannot explain. As the wind moves through the ruins and shadows stretch across the ancient stones, one question lingers with unsettling clarity. What did they know? What techniques? What principles? What understanding of the world that we have since forgotten? What technique do you think ancient people used to build Capo Corb Vel with such incredible precision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Beneath the shifting light of the eastern Mediterranean, just off the coast of modern-day Syria, lies a small yet astonishing island whose stone defenses have endured the relentless passage of time. Arwad Island, known in antiquity as Aradus, may appear modest in size, but its fortifications tell a story of engineering brilliance, maritime dominance, and enduring mystery. Rising directly from the sea, its walls form an unbroken ring of protection, merging so seamlessly with the rocky shoreline that they seem less constructed and more grown from the earth itself. At first glance, it is a fortress, but upon closer inspection, it becomes something far more intriguing, a testament to a level of technical mastery that challenges everything we assume about ancient capabilities. Arwad's strategic importance cannot be overstated. Situated as a lone island settlement, it stood apart from the mainland, both physically and politically. While many ancient cities relied on expansive territory or agricultural hinterlands, Arwad relied on the sea. It was a maritime power, a hub of Phoenician trade, and a naval stronghold that controlled vital routes across the Mediterranean. Its isolation offered natural protection, yet it also imposed severe limitations. Space was scarce, resources were constrained, and any defensive structure had to be both efficient and extraordinarily durable. This unique combination of pressure and opportunity may have driven the island's inhabitants to develop techniques that surpassed those of their contemporaries. The fortifications themselves are among the most compelling features of Arwad. Encircling the island, they stand as a continuous barrier against both human and natural threats. Unlike many ancient walls that were constructed inland and later adapted to coastal environments, Arwad's defenses were conceived from the outset as maritime fortifications. They were built directly along the water's edge, where waves crash with unrelenting force. This alone would have presented immense challenges. Foundations had to be secured against erosion, materials had to withstand constant exposure to salt water, and the entire structure had to absorb and dissipate the energy of the sea without collapsing over time. What truly elevates Arwad's fortifications into the realm of mystery, however, is the extraordinary precision of their construction. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were cut and placed with such accuracy that they fit together almost perfectly. In many sections, the seams between stones are so fine that they appear nearly invisible. There is little to no use of mortar, meaning that the stability of the walls depends entirely on the exactness of the cuts and the weight distribution of the blocks themselves. This is not merely craftsmanship, it is engineering of a very high order. The question naturally arises, how was such precision achieved? Without modern tools, cranes, or measurement devices, the builders of Arwad managed to create structures that rival the tight tolerances of much later architectural traditions. One possibility is that the Phoenicians employed advanced surveying techniques using ropes, plumb lines, and calibrated measuring rods to ensure consistency. Another theory suggests that stones were shaped in multiple stages, first roughly at the quarry and then finally adjusted on-site to achieve a perfect fit. This would have required not only skill, but also a deep understanding of geometry and spatial relationships. Equally fascinating is the method by which these massive stones were transported and positioned. Moving multi-ton blocks across even short distances is a significant challenge, especially on a small island with limited space for maneuvering. It is possible that the Phoenicians utilized a combination of wooden rollers, sledges, and perhaps even primitive cranes or lifting frames. Some researchers speculate that tidal movements may have been exploited. Stones could have been floated or partially buoyed in water and then guided into place during high tide. While definitive evidence for such methods remains elusive, the very existence of these structures suggests that the builders possessed a level of logistical sophistication that is often underestimated. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Arwad's construction is its resilience. For thousands of years, these walls have faced the corrosive effects of salt water, the mechanical force of waves, and the gradual wear of time. Yet large sections remain intact. This durability implies not only careful material selection, but also an understanding of how structures behave under constant stress. The stones used were likely chosen for their density and resistance to erosion, while the interlocking design of the walls allowed them to flex slightly under pressure rather than crack. In this sense, the fortifications were not rigid barriers, but dynamic systems, capable of absorbing and redistributing energy. The design of the walls also appears to incorporate subtle adaptations to the marine environment. In some areas, the outer faces are slightly curved or angled, allowing waves to break and disperse rather than striking the surface directly. This reduces the force exerted on any single point and helps prevent structural failure. Such features suggest an empirical understanding of hydrodynamics, an ability to observe and respond to the behavior of water in motion. It is a reminder that ancient engineers, though lacking formal scientific terminology, were keen observers of the natural world. Beyond their defensive function, the fortifications of Arwad were integrated into a broader system of urban and maritime infrastructure. The island's harbors, docking facilities, and possibly hidden entrances were all designed in harmony with the walls. Ships needed to enter and exit efficiently. Goods had to be loaded and unloaded, and yet the island had to remain secure against potential invaders. Achieving this balance required careful planning and a holistic approach to design. The fortifications were not an isolated feature, they were part of a living, functioning city. Over time, Arwad became a layered historical site shaped by successive civilizations. The Phoenicians laid the foundation, but the Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, and later the Crusaders all left their mark. Each group adapted the existing structures to suit their needs, reinforcing, modifying, or expanding them. Yet despite these changes, the core techniques and principles established by the original builders remained intact. This continuity is itself a testament to the effectiveness of the original design. Later engineers recognized its value and chose to build upon it rather than replace it. Adding to the island's mystery is the possibility that much of its original infrastructure now lies beneath the sea. Changes in sea level tectonic activity or gradual subsidence may have submerged portions of the ancient harbor and outer defenses. Underwater surveys have hinted at the presence of structures below the surface, suggesting that what we see today may only be a fragment of a much larger system. If these submerged remains could be fully explored, They might reveal new insights into the techniques and technologies employed by Arwad's builders. And yet, even with modern archaeological methods, many aspects of Arwad's construction remain unexplained. The precision of the stonework, the durability of the materials, the apparent understanding of environmental forces all point to a level of sophistication that does not easily fit within conventional narratives of ancient technology. It raises uncomfortable but fascinating questions. Were these achievements simply the result of accumulated experience and skilled labor, refined over generations? Or do they hint at knowledge, perhaps mathematical, perhaps mechanical, that has since been lost? In the end, the fortifications of Arwad Island stand as both a monument and a mystery. They are a reminder that the past is often more complex and more advanced than we assume. Their stones, shaped and placed with extraordinary care, continue to resist the forces that have worn down so many other structures. And as they stand there between land and sea, they seem to whisper a quiet challenge to the modern world that ingenuity once achieved does not always leave behind a clear record of how it was done. Arwad is not merely an ancient fortress, it is a puzzle carved in stone, a convergence of environment necessity and human brilliance. And until every block is understood, every submerged ruin explored, and every technique fully reconstructed, its greatest secrets will remain just beyond our reach, hidden like the island itself once was between the known world and the vast uncharted sea. If you lived in ancient times, what method do you think people used to build such incredibly precise walls? Share your theory in the comments below. In the vast desert landscape between the legendary pyramids of Giza Plateau and the lesser-known necropolis of Abu Sir lies a site that rarely receives the attention it deserves, Zawyet el Aryan. At first glance, it appears unremarkable, a stretch of sand scattered with ruins and partially exposed stone. Yet beneath this quiet surface lies one of the most puzzling archaeological locations in Egypt, a place where unfinished ambitions, missing identities, and astonishing engineering converge into a mystery that continues to challenge historians and engineers alike. Unlike the grand and completed monuments of nearby Giza, Zawyet el Aryan is defined by what it lacks: completion, clarity, and answers, and it is precisely this absence that makes it so compelling. The site contains two major structures, both incomplete and both deeply enigmatic. The first, often referred to as the Layer Pyramid, appears to represent an early or transitional architectural experiment. Instead of the smooth, geometric faces seen in later pyramids, this structure was built in stacked layers, giving it a stepped appearance. It is widely believed to date back to Egypt's third dynasty and is sometimes attributed to the pharaoh Khaba, although no definitive inscription confirms this. The pyramid was never completed, and today it survives only as a series of crumbling stone tiers. No burial chamber has been conclusively identified, and no artifacts have provided a clear narrative of its intended purpose. It stands as a silent experiment, an architectural idea that was never fully realized, perhaps abandoned in favor of more refined designs like those seen later at Saqqara and Giza. However, it is the second structure at Zawyet el Aryan, the so-called unfinished pyramid, that has captured the imagination of researchers and alternative theorists alike. Unlike typical pyramids, this structure never rose above ground level. Instead, what remains is a massive, deeply excavated trench carved directly into the bedrock, descending approximately 20 meters below the desert's surface. At the bottom of this shaft lies a massive granite sarcophagus, precisely shaped and set into a carefully prepared chamber. This alone would be enough to spark curiosity, but it is the level of craftsmanship exhibited in this subterranean structure that elevates the site from merely unusual to profoundly mysterious. The granite used in the sarcophagus is one of the hardest stones available in ancient Egypt, requiring significant effort and advanced techniques to quarry, transport, and shape. Yet the surfaces of the box are remarkably smooth, with sharp internal corners and flat planes that suggest a level of precision that seems at times almost anachronistic. The interior appears to have been polished to a high degree, and the edges are so clean that they raise questions about the tools and methods used to achieve such results. Conventional explanations point to copper tools, abrasive sand, and immense labor over long periods of time. However, critics argue that these methods alone struggle to account for the consistency and refinement seen in the granite work at this site. This brings us to one of the most debated aspects of Zawyet el Aryan, the possibility that ancient Egyptian stoneworking techniques were far more advanced than traditionally believed. The precision seen in the granite sarcophagus has led some researchers to propose that the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of geometry measurement and material properties that has not been fully appreciated. The straightness of the lines, the flatness of the surfaces, and the symmetry of the structure all suggest careful planning and execution at a level that challenges the conventional narrative of primitive tools and methods. While mainstream archaeology maintains that such achievements are within the capabilities of known ancient techniques, the debate remains open, fueled by the lack of direct evidence showing exactly how these results were achieved. Adding to the mystery is the question of ownership. Fragmentary inscriptions found at the site have been tentatively linked to the pharaoh Djedefre, the son of Khufu. Djedefre is known for building his own pyramid at Abu Rawash, which further complicates the narrative. Why would he commission another pyramid here, only to leave it unfinished? Was this site intended for a different ruler, or was it abandoned due to political instability, resource constraints, or the sudden death of its patron? The absence of clear inscriptions leaves these questions unanswered, turning the site into a historical puzzle with missing pieces. Equally intriguing is the fact that the pyramid was never completed above ground. The excavation of such a deep and precisely cut shaft would have required significant planning and resources, suggesting that the project was well underway before it was abruptly halted. The reasons for this stoppage remain speculative. Some suggest internal political turmoil during the Fourth Dynasty, while others propose logistical challenges or shifts in religious practices that rendered the project obsolete. There is also the possibility that structural or geological issues were discovered during construction, forcing the builders to abandon the site entirely. Compounding all of this is the modern reality that Zawyet el Aryan remains largely inaccessible. The area has long been restricted due to its proximity to a military zone, limiting archaeological exploration and preventing comprehensive study. As a result, much of what we know about the site comes from early 20th century excavations, leaving vast portions of the area unexamined. This lack of access has allowed speculation to flourish, as researchers and enthusiasts alike attempt to fill in the gaps with theories ranging from the plausible to the extraordinary. When compared to other pyramid sites in Egypt, Zawyet el Aryan stands out not for its grandeur, but for its ambiguity. Sites like Giza showcase the pinnacle of ancient Egyptian achievement, with completed monuments that demonstrate mastery of engineering and organization. In contrast, Zawyet el Aryan offers a glimpse into the process rather than the result, a snapshot of ambition interrupted, of knowledge applied but never brought to full expression. It is a place where questions outweigh answers, where the incomplete nature of the structures invites deeper inquiry into the capabilities and intentions of their builders. Ultimately, the mystery of Zawyet el Aryan lies not in a single unanswered question, but in the convergence of many. Who commissioned these structures? Why were they abandoned? And perhaps most intriguingly, how were such precise and sophisticated stoneworks achieved with the tools available at the time? The granite sarcophagus at the bottom of the unfinished pyramid remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence in this ongoing debate, a silent testament to a level of craftsmanship that continues to challenge our understanding of ancient technology. As long as access to the site remains limited and further excavation is constrained, Zawyet el Aryan will continue to occupy a unique place in the study of ancient Egypt, a place defined by its mysteries, its contradictions, and its potential to reshape what we think we know about the past. Do you think the extremely precise stoneworking techniques at Zawyet el Aryan were the result of advanced ancient Egyptian innovation, or is there still an undiscovered mystery behind them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Beneath the dry, sun-scorched landscape of Sindh, Pakistan, the site of Kot Diji Fort preserves a story that unfolds not across pages, but across layers of earth. At first glance, the visible fortification appears to belong to a much later historical period, a stronghold perched strategically above the plains. Yet what lies beneath it is far more profound. Excavations have revealed a deeply stratified settlement, where each layer represents a different chapter in human development, stretching back to the early Harappan phase, long before the rise of the great cities of the Indus Valley civilization. These fortification layers are not simply remnants of walls. They are physical evidence of adaptation resilience and a level of engineering intelligence that challenges our assumptions about early societies. What makes Kot Diji especially compelling is the continuity of occupation and the repeated rebuilding of its defensive systems. The earliest fortifications, constructed primarily from mud bricks, demonstrate a clear understanding of both materials and environment. Mud brick, often dismissed as primitive, was in fact a highly effective building medium when used correctly. It provided insulation against extreme temperatures and could be produced locally with minimal resources. But at Kot Diji, the use of mud brick goes beyond practicality. The bricks appear to follow consistent proportions, suggesting a standardized system of production. This level of uniformity implies planning coordination and possibly even early forms of regulation within the community. As the settlement evolved, so too did its fortifications. Later layers reveal thicker walls, improved structural reinforcement, and more deliberate placement along the natural contours of the terrain. Rather than imposing rigid geometric designs, the builders adapted their architecture to the landscape, maximizing defensive advantage while minimizing construction effort. This indicates a sophisticated understanding of topography long before formal engineering disciplines existed. In some sections, archaeologists have identified multiple rebuilding phases where older walls were either reinforced or entirely replaced. These transitions are not random. They reflect a continuous process of evaluation and improvement, as if each generation learned from the successes and failures of the previous one. One of the most intriguing aspects of these layers is the evidence of destruction. Burnt strata, unevenly fired bricks, and collapsed structures point to catastrophic events that disrupted the settlement. Whether these were caused by conflict, accidental fires, or environmental stress remains uncertain. However, what stands out is not the destruction itself, but the response to it. Each time the fortifications were damaged, they were rebuilt, often stronger and more refined than before. This pattern suggests a community that was not only resilient, but also capable of technological progression through experience. The fortifications of Kot Diji are therefore not static constructions. They are dynamic records of learning and adaptation. This brings us to the most remarkable and enigmatic aspect of the site, its construction technology. At first glance, there is nothing extraordinary about mud bricks, simple walls, and basic tools. There is no evidence of advanced metallurgy, no machinery, no written engineering manuals. Yet the results speak for themselves. The fortification system is coherent, durable, and strategically effective. The walls are thick enough to provide defense, yet not wastefully so. The layout separates elevated citadel areas from lower residential zones, creating a hierarchical spatial organization that mirrors later urban planning seen in cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Such planning implies not only technical skill, but also social coordination and governance. How did a society without what we consider advanced technology achieve this level of architectural competence? The answer may lie in a different definition of technology itself. At Kot Diji, technology was not based on complex machines, but on accumulated knowledge of materials, climate, and structural behavior. The builders understood how mud behaves when mix-shaped, dried, and exposed to the elements. They knew how to align walls to reduce erosion, how to distribute weight to prevent collapse, and how to repair damage efficiently. These are principles that modern engineering still relies on, albeit expressed through more sophisticated tools and calculations. In this sense, the technology of Kot Diji was not primitive, it was optimized for its context. Another striking feature is the apparent efficiency of construction. The fortifications do not show signs of excessive labor or over-engineering. Instead, they reflect a balance between effort and outcome. This suggests that the community had developed methods to organize labor effectively, possibly through communal systems or early administrative structures. The standardization of bricks alone would have required coordination across production and construction processes. Such organization hints at a level of societal complexity that is often underestimated in pre-urban cultures. The absence of advanced tools also raises important questions. If these structures were built without metal reinforcements or mechanized assistance, then the precision achieved must have relied heavily on human skill. This implies the existence of specialized craftsmen, individuals who possessed detailed knowledge of construction techniques and passed it down through generations. The fortification layers, therefore, are not just physical structures. They are embodiments of human expertise, preserved in clay and earth. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not how these fortifications were built, but how such knowledge emerged in the first place. Was it the result of gradual experimentation? Over centuries, did it develop independently, or was it influenced by interactions with other early cultures? The continuity observed at Kot Diji suggests an internal evolution, a community refining its practices over time. Yet the similarities with later Harappan cities raise the possibility that this site played a foundational role in the development of one of the world's earliest urban civilizations. In many ways, Kot Diji represents a transitional moment, a bridge between simple rural settlements and fully developed urban centers. Its fortification layers capture this transformation in remarkable detail. They show a community learning to defend itself, to organize space, and to build with intention. They reveal that even in the absence of what we define as advanced technology, early humans were capable of achieving solutions that were both practical and enduring. As we look at these ancient walls, it becomes clear that the concept of technological advancement is not linear. The builders of Kot Diji did not need steel concrete or machines to create effective fortifications. What they had was something equally powerful, a deep understanding of their environment and the ability to apply that knowledge systematically. This is what makes the site so compelling. It challenges modern assumptions and forces us to reconsider what it means to be technologically advanced. Today, much of Kot Diji remains buried, its deeper layers still hidden beneath centuries of sediment. Each unexcavated section holds the potential to reshape our understanding of early human development. The fortification layers we have uncovered are only fragments of a much larger story, a story of innovation without industry, of engineering without machines, and of a society that, despite its apparent simplicity, achieved a level of sophistication that continues to inspire and perplex us. Do you think the builders of Kot Diji developed their knowledge independently or inherited it from an even older unknown civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Silbury Hill rises silently from the rolling landscape of Wiltshire, England, its smooth, grassy slopes blending almost seamlessly into the surrounding countryside. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than a natural hill shaped by time and weather. But this is an illusion. Beneath that deceptively simple exterior lies one of the most extraordinary and enigmatic constructions of the ancient world. Built around 2400 BCE, roughly contemporary with nearby monumental sites like Stonehenge and Silbury Hill, is not a product of nature at all. It is entirely man-made, the largest artificial prehistoric mound in Europe, constructed with an immense investment of labor planning and intention that continues to puzzle archaeologists to this day. The sheer scale of Silbury Hill is staggering. Standing approximately 40 meters high and containing hundreds of thousands of tons of earth chalk and gravel, it represents a level of organization and engineering sophistication that challenges assumptions about Neolithic societies. This was not a random accumulation of soil. Excavations have revealed that the mound was built in carefully planned stages, layer upon layer, with a central core surrounded by successive deposits of material, each added with deliberate precision. The builders used locally sourced chalk, cutting it into blocks and transporting it without the aid of metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or advanced machinery. Every basket of earth, every fragment of stone had to be carried by hand. The effort required would have involved hundreds, perhaps thousands of individuals working together over extended periods of time. This alone suggests a society capable not only of coordination and planning, but also of motivating its people toward a shared goal of immense scale. And yet, for all its grandeur and complexity, Silbury Hill conceals a profound and unsettling mystery. Unlike pyramids in Egypt or burial mounds found elsewhere in Europe, Silbury Hill appears to contain nothing of obvious significance within it. No royal tomb has been discovered. No burial chamber, no hidden treasure, no clear ritual artifacts that would indicate its purpose. Over the centuries, multiple excavations have pierced its interior. In the 18th century, antiquarians, driven by curiosity and perhaps the hope of uncovering wealth, dug shafts into the mound. Later, in the 19th and 20th centuries, more systematic archaeological investigations were conducted with scientific methods. Yet despite these efforts, the interior has yielded little beyond the materials used to construct it. The hill is, in a very real sense, empty. This absence is what makes Silbury Hill so deeply intriguing. It is not simply that we do not know its purpose, it is that the structure itself seems to resist interpretation. Most monumental constructions in human history leave behind clues to their function, architectural features, inscriptions, associated artifacts, or cultural parallels that help us understand their role. Silbury Hill offers none of these. It stands as a massive intentional creation without an obvious reason for existing. This raises a fundamental question that continues to challenge historians and archaeologists alike. Why would a prehistoric society invest such enormous effort into building something that appears to serve no practical purpose? Numerous theories have been proposed in an attempt to explain this enigma, but none have been definitively proven. One of the earliest ideas was that Silbury Hill might be a burial mound, perhaps the resting place of a powerful chieftain or a revered leader. This theory was fueled by comparisons to other ancient barrows found across Europe. However, repeated excavations have failed to uncover any human remains or burial chambers, effectively undermining this hypothesis. If it was intended as a tomb, it is an extraordinarily unusual one, devoid of the very elements that define such structures. Another possibility is that Silbury Hill served a ceremonial or religious function. Its proximity to Avebury, one of the largest stone circles in the world, suggests that it may have been part of a broader ritual landscape. Some researchers believe it could have been a focal point for gathering ceremonies or processions, perhaps symbolizing a sacred mountain or a connection between the earth and the sky. In this interpretation, the mound itself may have been more important as a symbol than as a container of objects or remains. Its sheer size and visibility would have made it a powerful presence in the landscape, capable of inspiring awe and reinforcing shared beliefs. There are also theories that link Silbury Hill to astronomical alignments or seasonal cycles. Ancient societies often built structures that reflected their understanding of celestial movements, using them to mark solstices, equinoxes, or other significant moments in the year. While Silbury Hill does not exhibit the precise alignments seen at Stonehenge, some researchers have suggested that its placement and shape may still hold symbolic connections to the sky, the sun, or cycles of fertility and renewal. In this sense, the hill could represent a kind of cosmological statement, a physical embodiment of ideas about the universe that were central to the people who built it. Yet perhaps the most intriguing possibility is that Silbury Hill was never meant to contain anything at all. Instead, its purpose may have been entirely conceptual or symbolic. It may have been an expression of identity, power, or unity, a way for a community to define itself and assert its presence within the landscape. The act of building the hill could have been as important as the finished structure itself. Each layer added, each basket of chalk carried may have been part of a shared ritual process that brought people together and reinforced social bonds. In this view, Silbury Hill is less a monument to something external and more a reflection of the society that created it. What makes this interpretation so compelling is that it aligns with the one thing we can say with certainty: the construction of Silbury Hill required extraordinary commitment. This was not a project undertaken lightly. It demanded time, energy, and coordination on a scale that suggests deep motivation. Whether driven by religious belief, social organization, or a combination of factors, the builders of Silbury Hill clearly saw value in what they were doing, even if that value is no longer visible to us. The mystery is further deepened by the fact that Silbury Hill is part of a larger prehistoric landscape that includes not only Avebury and Stonehenge, but also ancient pathways, smaller mounds, and other features that hint at a complex and interconnected cultural system. Together, these elements form a network of sites that likely held great significance for the people who lived there. Silbury Hill may have played a central role within this network, serving as a focal point or anchor for activities that we can only partially reconstruct. Despite advances in archaeology and technology, the true purpose of Silbury Hill remains elusive. Modern techniques such as ground-penetrating radar and non-invasive surveys have provided new insights into its structure, confirming the layered construction and revealing details about its development over time. Yet they have not uncovered the missing piece of the puzzle, the reason why it was built in the first place. This enduring uncertainty is part of what makes Silbury Hill so fascinating. It challenges our expectations, reminding us that not all human achievements are easily understood or explained. In the end, Silbury Hill stands as a silent testament to a lost way of thinking, a monument not only of earth and chalk, but of ideas and intentions that have not survived the passage of time. Its greatest mystery is not hidden within its layers, but in the absence of answers it presents. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and to consider the possibility that some aspects of the past may remain forever beyond our reach. And perhaps that is what makes Silbury Hill truly remarkable, not just what it is, but what it refuses to reveal. So what do you think Silbury Hill was truly built for? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Sibyl's Cave, hidden within the ancient ruins of Cumae, stands as one of the most enigmatic and haunting structures of the ancient world. Carved into volcanic rock along the western coast of Italy, this long shadow-filled corridor stretches approximately 130 meters into the earth, forming a geometric passage that feels both deliberate and otherworldly. Unlike natural caves shaped by erosion, the Sibyl's Cave reveals signs of intentional design at every turn. Its trapezoidal form, sharply cut angles, and carefully aligned openings suggest not only architectural planning, but a deeper purpose, one that may transcend simple habitation or defense. From the moment one steps inside, the atmosphere shifts. Light filters in through narrow slits in the stone walls, creating a rhythm of illumination and darkness that seems almost ritualistic, as if guiding visitors through a symbolic journey rather than a physical space. According to ancient tradition, this cave was the dwelling of the Cumaean Sibyl, a prophetic figure whose voice carried the weight of fate itself. She was believed to possess the power to see beyond the present, to glimpse threads of destiny that others could not perceive. Those who sought her guidance would travel deep into the cave, entering a space where the boundary between human and divine knowledge appeared to dissolve. It is said that the Sibyl wrote her prophecies on leaves, scattering them within the cave. If the wind disturbed them, the messages would become fragmented, forcing seekers to reconstruct meaning from chaos. This peculiar detail reflects not only the elusive nature of prophecy, but also the cave's possible role as a controlled environment, one where airflow acoustics and spatial design may have been intentionally manipulated to enhance the mystical experience. The cave's significance extends beyond myth into the literary world, most notably through its appearance in Aeneid. In this epic, the hero Aeneas ventures to Cumae in search of guidance, descending with the Sibyl into the underworld itself. This narrative cements the cave's reputation as more than a physical structure. It becomes a symbolic gateway between worlds, a threshold where life and death intersect. Such associations have led many to speculate that the cave may have been used for ritual purposes, perhaps even as a ceremonial passage designed to simulate a journey into the afterlife. The darkness, the narrowing corridors, and the calculated intrusion of light all contribute to an experience that feels deliberately constructed to evoke awe, fear, and transformation. Yet, among all its mysteries, the most profound question remains unresolved: who built the Sibyl's Cave, and why does its design differ so significantly from other known structures of the same era? This question has puzzled archaeologists, historians, and engineers alike. While the site is generally associated with ancient Greek settlers and later Roman occupation, the cave itself does not fully conform to the architectural norms of either culture. Its precision is striking. The walls are cut with an accuracy that suggests advanced knowledge of stoneworking techniques, yet there is little evidence of the tools or methods used to achieve such results. The trapezoidal geometry is particularly unusual, as it appears to serve no obvious structural necessity. Instead, it may indicate an understanding of stability acoustics or even symbolic mathematics that has yet to be fully decoded. One of the most compelling aspects of this mystery lies in the cave's interaction with light. The narrow openings along the corridor are not randomly placed. They seem carefully positioned to allow sunlight to enter at specific angles. Some researchers have proposed that these openings could align with certain times of day or year, potentially linking the structure to astronomical events. If true, this would suggest that the builders possessed not only architectural skill but also a sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles. Such knowledge would place the cave within a broader tradition of ancient structures designed to reflect cosmic order. Yet unlike monuments such as Stonehenge or Egyptian temples, the Sibyl's Cave remains largely hidden underground, its secrets concealed within darkness. Equally intriguing is the cave's acoustic environment. Sound behaves strangely within its walls, echoing in ways that amplify certain tones while muting others. It is possible that this effect was intentional, designed to enhance the voice of the Sibyl as she delivered her prophecies. Imagine standing within that corridor, hearing a voice that seems to come from everywhere, at once resonating through stone and shadow. Such an experience would have reinforced the perception of divine communication, transforming the cave into a theater of the supernatural. If the builders understood and utilized these acoustic properties, it would further demonstrate a level of engineering sophistication that challenges conventional assumptions about ancient capabilities. Another unresolved question concerns the timeline of construction. While the cave is often attributed to the Greek colonists of Cumae in the 8th century BCE, some features suggest it may predate their arrival. The style does not fully match known Greek designs, nor does it align neatly with Roman modifications. This has led to speculation that the cave could be the remnant of an earlier, now lost culture, one whose knowledge and techniques were later adapted or repurposed by subsequent civilizations. If this hypothesis holds any truth, then the Sibyl's Cave may represent not just a single chapter of history, but a layered narrative spanning multiple eras, each leaving its mark on the structure while obscuring its original purpose. There is also the possibility that the cave was never meant to be understood in purely practical terms. Its design may incorporate symbolic elements that reflect philosophical or spiritual beliefs rather than functional requirements. The trapezoidal shape, for instance, could represent a transition from one state to another, narrowing or expanding in ways that mirror the journey of the soul. The interplay of light and darkness might symbolize knowledge emerging from ignorance or life emerging from death. In this sense, the cave becomes more than an architectural achievement. It becomes a physical embodiment of abstract ideas, a space where meaning is encoded not in words, but in stone. Despite centuries of study, the Sibyl's Cave continues to resist definitive explanation. Modern technology has allowed researchers to map its structure in detail. Yet these measurements have only deepened the mystery rather than resolving it. Every precise angle, every carefully placed opening, every echoing chamber raises new questions about intention and origin. Was this truly the work of known ancient civilizations? Or does it hint at a level of knowledge that has been lost to time? And if so, what other structures might once have existed now, erased from the historical record? Today, visitors who walk through the cave experience only a fragment of its original context. The voice of the Sibyl is silent, the rituals long forgotten, and the meanings once embedded in its design, largely obscured. Yet the atmosphere remains. There is still a sense of entering a space that was never meant to be ordinary, a place where architecture and mystery converge. The Sibyl's Cave endures not only as a relic of the past, but as a question carved into stone, a question that continues to challenge our understanding of ancient knowledge, human ingenuity, and the boundaries between myth and reality. So, what do you think? Was the Sibyl's Cave simply a remarkable construction of its time, or could it be evidence of something far more advanced, something we have yet to fully comprehend? In the aftermath of one of history's most dramatic cultural collisions, the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire, there emerged a remarkable document that continues to intrigue historians, anthropologists, and researchers to this day. Known as the Magliabechiano Codex, this manuscript stands not merely as a record, but as a layered artifact of translation, preservation, and transformation. Created in the 16th century, likely within a few decades after the fall of Tenochtitlan, the Codex reflects a world caught between two realities: the fading echoes of indigenous belief systems and the imposing presence of European colonial interpretation. At first glance, the Codex appears to be a descriptive account of Aztec religion. It contains vivid illustrations of gods, rituals, festivals, and sacred practices. The imagery is unmistakably indigenous in style, bold, symbolic, and deeply embedded in a visual language that predates European contact. Yet accompanying these images are Spanish annotations, likely written by a colonial observer, possibly a friar, attempting to interpret and categorize what he saw. This duality gives the Codex a unique character. It is neither fully Aztec nor entirely European, but something in between, a hybrid document shaped by both preservation and misunderstanding. Among its many features, one aspect stands out with particular significance: the Codex's intricate representation of time and the cosmos. This is not simply a calendar in the modern sense. Instead, it reveals an entire worldview built upon cycles, rhythms, and celestial patterns that governed every aspect of Aztec life. To understand this system is to glimpse how the Aztecs perceived reality itself, not as a linear progression, but as an endlessly repeating cycle of creation, destruction, and renewal. Central to this system is the Tonalpohualli, a sacred calendar consisting of 260 days. Unlike the solar year familiar to modern societies, this calendar operated through the combination of 20 day signs and 13 numerical coefficients. Each day was not merely a unit of time, but carried its own spiritual identity, its own set of omens, and its own influence over human fate. The Codex meticulously illustrates these day signs, each one tied to deities, natural forces, and symbolic meanings. This suggests that time for the Aztecs was alive. It was a force that interacted with human existence, shaping destinies and guiding decisions. The complexity of this system is staggering. With 20-day signs rotating alongside 13 numbers, the calendar produces 260 unique combinations before repeating. This was not arbitrary. Scholars have long debated its origins, proposing connections to agricultural cycles, human gestation periods, or astronomical observations. While no single explanation has been universally accepted, what remains clear is that this system required a high level of abstract thinking and long-term observation. It was not the product of chance, but of deliberate and sustained intellectual effort. Beyond the 260-day cycle, the codex also alludes to a larger temporal framework, the 52-year calendar round. This system emerged from the synchronization of the 260-day ritual calendar with a 365-day solar calendar known as the Shupahwali. Every 52 years, these two cycles would align, marking a moment of profound cosmic significance. The Aztecs believed that at the end of each 52-year cycle, the universe was at risk of collapsing into darkness. To prevent this, they performed the New Fire Ceremony, a ritual intended to renew the sun and ensure the continuation of existence. Here, the codex moves beyond mere documentation and enters the realm of cosmology. Time is no longer just measured, it is feared, negotiated with, and ritually sustained. The survival of the cosmos itself depends on human action. This idea reveals a deeply interdependent relationship between humans and the universe, one in which ritual becomes a form of cosmic maintenance. What makes this even more extraordinary is the implied level of astronomical knowledge. While the codex does not present equations or observational logs in the modern scientific sense, its structure suggests an awareness of celestial cycles that is both precise and meaningful. The synchronization of multiple calendars, the tracking of long-term cycles, and the alignment of rituals with specific temporal markers all point to a sophisticated understanding of timekeeping. This was not simply myth, it was a system grounded in observation, refined over generations, and encoded into cultural practice. And yet much of this knowledge remains elusive. Because the codex is a copy, likely derived from an earlier, now lost original, there is always the possibility that details have been altered, simplified, or misinterpreted. The Spanish annotations, while valuable, may also introduce distortions, filtering indigenous concepts through a foreign lens. As a result, modern scholars must navigate a complex interpretive landscape, piecing together meaning from fragments that are both revealing and obscure. This uncertainty only deepens the mystery. How did the Aztecs develop such a complex system without the tools of modern astronomy? What observations led them to construct a 260-day cycle? And how accurately did their understanding of celestial movements reflect the physical reality of the sky? These questions remain open, inviting speculation and ongoing research. In many ways, the Magliabechiano Codex is not just a document of the past, it is a challenge to the present. It forces us to reconsider what constitutes knowledge, how it is preserved, and how easily it can be misunderstood. It reminds us that advanced thinking does not always take the form we expect. Sometimes it is encoded in symbols, rituals, and cycles that require an entirely different way of seeing. As we turn its pages, whether physically or through digital reproductions, we are not simply reading history. We are encountering a worldview in which time is sacred, the cosmos is fragile, and humanity plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance between order and chaos. The Codex does not offer easy answers. Instead, it invites us into a deeper mystery, one that continues to unfold with every new interpretation. And perhaps that is its greatest power, not as a relic of a lost civilization, but as a living puzzle, one that still has the ability to reshape how we understand time knowledge and the universe itself. What do you think was the Magliabechiano Codex simply a record of beliefs, or could it be a fragment of a much deeper understanding of time and the universe that we still don't fully grasp today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. On a remote stretch of land, on the island of Hoy, surrounded by windswept moorland and an almost haunting silence, stands one of the most enigmatic prehistoric monuments in Europe, the Dwarfy Stane. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than a massive solitary boulder, resting in isolation. But this is no ordinary stone. Carved directly into its solid body is a carefully designed chamber, an artificial space, created not by assembling materials, but by removing them. It is in essence a tomb sculpted from a single monolithic rock, and that alone sets it apart from nearly every other Neolithic structure known to archaeology. The Dwarfy Stane measures roughly 8 meters in length and several meters in height, composed of old red sandstone that has endured the harsh climate of Orkney for thousands of years. Unlike chambered cairns such as Maisho, which were constructed by stacking and arranging multiple stones into intricate formations, the Dwarfy Stane represents an entirely different approach. Here, prehistoric builders chose to work inward, carving out a passage and interior chambers from a single, immovable mass. Inside, a short entrance corridor leads to 2 small cells, likely intended as burial spaces. The layout is simple, yet deliberate, suggesting planning precision and a clear conceptual design. But what truly elevates the mystery of the Dwarfy Stane is not just its form, but its age. Archaeologists generally date the monument to around 3000 BCE, placing it firmly within the Neolithic period. This was a time long before the widespread use of metal tools in Northern Europe. Communities relied on implements made from stone bone and wood materials that, while effective for many tasks, seem almost absurdly inadequate when faced with the challenge of carving into a massive block of solid sandstone. And yet somehow, this was achieved. This is where the monument begins to challenge not only our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities, but also our understanding of technological development. To hollow out such a structure would have required an extraordinary amount of labor patience and technical knowledge. Even with modern tools, carving a clean, stable chamber into a single rock of this size is no trivial task. Without metal chisels or advanced cutting techniques, the Neolithic builders would have had to rely on repeated impact abrasion and possibly controlled heating and cooling of the stone to induce fractures. Each strike would have removed only a small amount of material. Each surface would have required refinement. The process could have taken months, if not years. And yet the interior of the Dwarfy Stane is not crude. It is not chaotic. The walls are relatively smooth, the spaces clearly defined. The proportions are intentional. This was not random excavation, it was execution of a plan. That raises a fundamental question. How did these people conceive of such a project? And how did they maintain the precision needed to complete it? When we compare the Dwarfy Stane to other Neolithic sites in Orkney, such as Skara Brae, we see evidence of remarkable ingenuity: stone-built houses, drainage systems, organized settlements. But even within this context of innovation, the Dwarfy Stane feels different. It is not part of a village. It is not integrated into a larger complex. It stands alone, both physically and conceptually. Its construction method does not align with the dominant architectural practices of the region. It feels like an outlier, an experiment, or perhaps the expression of a unique cultural or spiritual idea. Some researchers have pointed to similarities between the Dwarfy Stane and rock-cut tombs found in parts of the Mediterranean, including regions like Sicily and Malta. In those areas, ancient cultures also carved burial spaces directly into rock. Could this suggest a form of long-distance cultural transmission? Did ideas travel farther than we once believed, carried by early seafarers across vast stretches of ocean? Or is this a case of convergent development where different societies independently arrived at similar solutions to similar problems? The chronological implications are profound. If the Dwarfy Stane does reflect influence from distant cultures, it would imply a level of connectivity in the Neolithic world that challenges traditional narratives of isolated development. On the other hand, if it was created entirely independently, it demonstrates that the people of Orkney possessed not only the technical ability, but also the conceptual imagination to undertake such an unusual and demanding project on their own. Equally intriguing is the presence of a large stone slab that appears to have functioned as a door. Positioned near the entrance, this slab could have been used to seal the chamber, closing off the interior space. The idea of a movable stone door suggests an understanding of enclosure protection and perhaps ritual significance. This was not merely a hollowed rock, it was a constructed environment with boundaries, with a defined interior and exterior. It may have served as a tomb for a single individual of importance, or perhaps as a symbolic space tied to beliefs about death transition or the afterlife. Over time, the Dwarfy Stane has also accumulated layers of mythology. Local folklore speaks of dwarfs or giants of supernatural beings inhabiting or creating the stone. These stories, while not historical evidence, reveal something important. Even centuries ago, people recognized that this monument did not fit easily into their understanding of the world. It inspired imagination because it defied explanation. And perhaps that is the most enduring aspect of the Dwarfy Stane. It exists at the intersection of simplicity and complexity. It is, in one sense, just a carved rock, but in another, it is a testament to human determination, creativity, and the desire to shape the environment in meaningful ways. Its age places it among the earliest known examples of such ambition. Its construction challenges our assumptions about what was possible with limited tools, and its isolation only deepens the sense that it was created for a purpose that we may never fully understand. More than 5,000 years have passed since its creation, yet the Dwarfy Stane continues to pose the same quiet, persistent question. How did a society without metal, without machines, without written records, conceive of and complete such a work? Was it the result of slow, methodical effort over generations? A single visionary project carried out with relentless focus? Or does it hint at knowledge, practical, observational, or even experimental, that has since been lost to time? In the end, the Dwarfy Stane does not offer answers. It offers a challenge. It invites us to reconsider the capabilities of our ancestors, to question the linear narratives of progress we often take for granted, and to acknowledge that even in the distant past, humans were capable of feats that still inspire wonder today. Long before the rise of the great urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization, before the streets of Mohenjo-Daro were laid out in geometric precision, and before the granaries of Harappa reflected a fully organized urban economy, there existed a quieter, older settlement that may hold the true origins of this enigmatic civilization. This place, known today as the Kunal archaeological site in Haryana, dates back to approximately 3000 to 2600 BCE. Officially categorized within the early Harappan phase, Kunal should, by all conventional expectations, represent a formative stage, a period of experimentation, gradual development, and incomplete systems. Yet what archaeologists have uncovered here challenges that assumption at its core. At first glance, Kunal appears unremarkable, a settlement composed of mud brick structures, modest architectural remains, and evidence of an agrarian lifestyle, slowly transitioning toward complexity. But this simplicity is deceptive. Beneath the surface lies a contradiction that has puzzled researchers for decades. The artifacts discovered at Kunal suggest not a society in its infancy, but one already possessing refined craftsmanship, long-distance trade connections, and a level of cultural sophistication that seems out of place for its time. It is as if Kunal does not represent the beginning of a civilization, but rather a continuation of something already advanced. Among all the discoveries made at the site, none are more astonishing than the extraordinary collection of jewelry, an assemblage so intricate, so technically refined, that it fundamentally reshapes our understanding of early human craftsmanship. These are not crude ornaments fashioned by trial and error. They are precise, deliberate creations that reflect mastery. Excavations have revealed gold and silver ornaments alongside finely crafted beads made from semi-precious stones such as carnelian and lapis lazuli. The mere presence of these materials is remarkable, but it is the level of execution that elevates them into the realm of mystery. The beads found at Kunal are astonishing in their uniformity and precision. Many are perfectly symmetrical, polished to a smooth, almost modern finish, and drilled with microscopic accuracy. The holes running through these beads are centered with such consistency that they suggest not only advanced technique, but also a deep understanding of material properties. Carnelian, for instance, is a hard stone that requires controlled drilling methods that in later periods are associated with highly specialized artisans using sophisticated tools. Yet here, in what is supposed to be an early stage of civilization, such techniques appear fully realized. This raises a profound and unsettling question: how did such advanced craftsmanship emerge so suddenly? In most historical contexts, technological progress leaves behind a trail evidence of experimentation, failed attempts, and gradual refinement. But at Kunal, this trail is conspicuously absent. There are no intermediate stages, no crude versions of these beads that hint at a learning curve. Instead, what we find are finished products, objects that seem to have appeared fully formed, as if the knowledge required to create them was inherited rather than discovered. The drilling techniques alone are enough to provoke speculation. Some researchers have suggested the use of specialized drills, possibly tipped with harder materials, capable of maintaining stability and precision at a microscopic level. Others point to the possibility of rotational drilling mechanisms that allowed for even pressure distribution. Regardless of the exact method, the result is undeniable: a level of precision that rivals craftsmanship seen thousands of years later. This is not merely skill, it is expertise deeply ingrained and confidently executed. Equally remarkable is the sourcing of materials. Lapis lazuli, one of the most striking stones found at Kunal, originates from regions in Afghanistan, hundreds of kilometers away. Its presence at the site implies not only long-distance trade, but also a network of exchange sophisticated enough to transport valuable materials across vast and potentially hostile landscapes. Carnelian, too, is associated with specific geological regions, further reinforcing the idea that Kunal was part of an extensive and organized trade system. But how could a settlement from such an early period participate in such complex interactions? This question remains unanswered. The existence of such jewelry also reveals something deeper about the society that produced it. Objects of this quality are rarely created in isolation. They are typically the result of specialization. This suggests that Kunal may have had dedicated artisans individuals who spent significant time mastering their craft. Such specialization in turn implies a structured society capable of supporting non-subsistence roles. In other words, Kunal was not just a village, it was a community with layers, roles, and possibly even early forms of hierarchy. Who then wore these ornaments? The presence of gold and silver suggests that these items were not accessible to everyone. They may have been symbols of status, worn by an emerging elite, or used in ceremonial contexts. Alternatively, they could have held spiritual significance, serving as markers of identity, belief, or ritual practice. Without written records, we can only speculate, but the implications are profound. Kunal was not merely surviving, it was expressing itself culturally, artistically, and symbolically. Beyond the jewelry, the site offers additional clues that reinforce its complexity. The use of standardized mud bricks indicates an understanding of construction techniques and possibly even early forms of regulation or planning. The layout of the settlement suggests intentional organization rather than random growth. These features hint at a society that was already experimenting with the principles that would later define the great cities of the Indus Valley. There are also markings found on pottery symbols that resemble early forms of the Indus script. Though not yet a fully developed writing system, these markings suggest that the people of Kunal were beginning to explore methods of communication beyond speech. Whether these symbols represent ownership, trade records, or ritual meanings remains unknown, but their presence adds another layer to the mystery, hinting at intellectual developments that parallel the site's technological achievements. And then, as abruptly as it appears in the archaeological record, Kunal seems to fade. There is no clear evidence of violent destruction, no signs of large-scale conflict. Instead, the settlement appears to have been gradually abandoned. Environmental factors such as the drying up of ancient river systems, possibly linked to the Saraswati River, are often cited as potential causes. Changes in trade routes or patterns of migration may also have played a role. But none of these explanations fully capture the enigma of a site that once demonstrated such remarkable sophistication. In the end, Kunal stands as a paradox. It is labeled as early, yet it exhibits characteristics that challenge that very label. Its jewelry in particular defies expectations, suggesting that advanced craftsmanship existed far earlier than we once believed, or that it was inherited from a source we have yet to uncover. It forces us to question the linear narrative of human progress and to consider the possibility that knowledge can emerge, disappear, and re-emerge in ways we do not yet understand. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is this: Kunal is not the beginning of the Indus Valley civilization, but a fragment of something older, a remnant of a forgotten chapter in human history. A chapter in which skilled trade and culture had already reached impressive heights, only to be lost and rediscovered in forms we are only now beginning to piece together. What do you think about this mystery? Is Kunal truly the beginning of a civilization, or just a remnant of an even older one? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Discovered in 1897, near the ancient Iberian settlement of Elche in southeastern Spain, the Lady of Elche stands today as one of the most enigmatic sculptures ever unearthed from the ancient world. At first glance, it appears to be a serene bust of a noblewoman, calm, composed, and almost timeless. But the longer one studies this artifact, the more unsettling questions begin to emerge. Because this is not just a sculpture, it is an anomaly, one that seems to defy the artistic, technological, and cultural expectations of its time. Dating back to approximately the 4th century BCE, the piece is attributed to the Iberian civilization a culture that thrived on the Iberian Peninsula long before Roman dominance. Yet here lies the paradox. While Iberian societies were certainly complex, they are not widely recognized for producing sculpture of such astonishing technical sophistication. And yet the Lady of Elche exists perfectly carved, hauntingly lifelike, and inexplicably advanced. The most striking aspect of the sculpture is its craftsmanship, so refined, so deliberate, that it challenges everything we assume about ancient Iberian artisans. The face alone reveals a level of anatomical understanding that borders on the classical ideals of ancient Greece. The symmetry is near flawless. The proportions follow a harmony that suggests not only artistic intuition, but also an underlying system of measurement or aesthetic canon. The eyelids are delicately shaped, the lips gently curved, and the contours of the cheeks transition with a softness that seems almost impossible to achieve with the tools available at the time. What is particularly astonishing is the precision with which the stone has been worked. The transitions between planes, the cheekbones to the jawline, the brow to the nose, are executed with a subtlety that implies an advanced mastery of light and shadow. This is not crude carving. This is controlled, intentional sculpting that anticipates how the human eye will perceive depth and form. Even under modern scrutiny, the surface reveals a level of finishing that suggests the use of techniques far more sophisticated than simple chiseling. Then there are the details, the elements that elevate this piece from impressive to extraordinary. The elaborate headdress, with its iconic circular, wheel-like forms on either side of the head, is carved with an almost obsessive attention to geometry and repetition. Each ridge, each layered segment, appears carefully planned and executed with mathematical precision. These are not decorative afterthoughts. They are integral to the structure and balance of the sculpture. The jewelry, too, speaks of a level of refinement that is difficult to reconcile with the technological limitations of the era. Necklaces cascade down the chest in perfectly aligned rows, each bead or segment rendered with clarity and consistency. The folds of the garment are not randomly etched, but follow a rhythm, a visual language that suggests movement, weight, and fabric behavior. It is as if the sculptor not only understood the human form, but also possessed an intimate knowledge of materials physics and visual storytelling. This raises a critical question. How was such precision achieved? The tools available to Iberian artisans in the 4th century BCE were primarily iron chisels and basic abrasives. While capable in skilled hands, these tools typically produce marks and limitations that are visible even in well-preserved works. Yet in the Lady of Elche, the finish is unusually smooth, the lines unusually clean. Some researchers have suggested that the sculptor may have employed advanced polishing techniques, possibly using fine sand or mineral powders. Others speculate that the stone itself, a type of limestone, may have allowed for finer detailing. But even these explanations fall short of fully accounting for the consistency and control evident across the entire piece. There is also the question of artistic influence. The naturalistic style of the face bears a resemblance to Greek sculpture of the classical period, leading some scholars to propose that Iberian artists were influenced by Greek colonies along the Mediterranean coast. Trade routes certainly existed, and cultural exchange is well documented. However, influence alone does not equal replication. Even in regions heavily influenced by Greek art, local adaptations typically retain distinct characteristics. The Lady of Elche, however, does not feel like an imitation. It feels like something that stands on equal footing, if not beyond. Could it be that Iberian artisans had access to knowledge or techniques that have since been lost, or that there existed workshops or master craftsmen whose skills were never recorded in surviving texts. The absence of comparable works only deepens the mystery. If this level of craftsmanship was achievable, why do we not see more examples of it? Why does the Lady of Elche appear as a singular peak, rather than part of a broader artistic tradition? Adding to the intrigue is the discovery of a hollow cavity at the back of the sculpture. This feature suggests that the piece was not merely decorative, but functional, possibly used as a funerary urn to hold cremated remains. This dual purpose, both artistic and ritualistic, indicates a sophisticated understanding of symbolism and design. The sculpture was not just meant to be seen, it was meant to serve a role within a larger cultural or spiritual framework. Traces of pigment found on the surface further reveal that the sculpture was once vividly colored. Reds, blues, and possibly gold accents would have brought the figure to life in a way that modern viewers can scarcely imagine. This polychromy adds yet another layer of complexity, as it implies knowledge of pigments, binders, and application techniques that must have been carefully controlled to achieve the desired effect. And yet, despite all of this, the identity of the figure remains unknown. Is she a goddess, a priestess, a noblewoman, immortalized in stone, or perhaps a symbolic representation of something greater, a cultural ideal, a spiritual intermediary, a guardian of the dead? Without inscriptions or written records, we are left to interpret her expression, her attire, her presence. But perhaps the greatest mystery is not who she represents or even how she was used. Perhaps the greatest mystery is how she was made. Because the Lady of Elche does not behave like an artifact bound by its time, it feels ahead of it, out of place, almost intrusive in the timeline of human artistic development. It forces us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were capable of. It challenges the assumption that progress is always linear, that sophistication must follow a predictable path. Instead, it suggests something far more unsettling, that there may have been peaks of knowledge, skill, and artistry that have been lost to history, erased, forgotten, or simply undiscovered. And in that sense, the Lady of Elche is more than a sculpture. It is a message, a silent, unyielding reminder that the past may be far more advanced and far more mysterious than we are ready to accept. What do you think about the Lady of Elche? Could it be evidence of a lost sculpting technology in history, or simply a rare peak of ancient human talent? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden beneath the ruins of the ancient Assyrian city of Nimrud lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries ever made, the Nimrud ivory's cache. At first glance, these objects may seem like mere decorative fragments, small plaques, carved panels, and delicate ornaments. But upon closer inspection, they reveal something far more profound, a level of artistic mastery, technical precision, and cultural complexity that challenges our entire understanding of ancient craftsmanship. The ivories were discovered in large quantities within the remains of palaces dating back to the Neo-Assyrian Empire, roughly between the 9th and 7th centuries BCE. Thousands of pieces were recovered, many broken, scattered, or burned, as if they had been violently buried during the destruction of the city. Yet even in their fragmented state, they carry an unmistakable aura of refinement. They were not ordinary objects. They were luxury items, symbols of power, wealth, and elite taste, likely used to decorate royal furniture, ceremonial objects, or palace interiors. What makes the Nimrud ivories particularly fascinating is their stylistic diversity. Unlike typical Assyrian art, which is often bold, rigid, and monumental, These carvings display a softer, more intricate aesthetic. Many pieces exhibit clear influences from Phoenician and Egyptian artistic traditions, featuring motifs such as lotus flowers, winged deities, sphinxes, and elaborately adorned human figures. This fusion of styles suggests a world far more interconnected than we often imagine, a network of trade tribute and cultural exchange that spanned vast distances across the ancient Near East. But beyond their cultural significance, it is the craftsmanship of these ivories that truly sets them apart. This is where the mystery deepens. Each piece was carved from elephant ivory, a material both rare and notoriously difficult to work with. Ivory is dense, yet fragile, capable of cracking or splintering under the slightest miscalculation. It requires not only technical skill, but also an intimate understanding of the material's internal structure. And yet the artisans behind the Nimrud ivories appear to have mastered it completely. The carvings are astonishingly precise. Faces are rendered with subtle expressions, delicate eyelids, and finely shaped lips. Hair is depicted strand by strand, often braided or curled with incredible detail. Jewelry, necklaces, earrings, headdresses is carved so intricately that individual beads and patterns remain visible even after thousands of years. In some cases, traces of gold, leaf-colored glass, and semi-precious stones still cling to the surface, revealing that these objects were once even more vibrant and luxurious than they appear today. What is perhaps most remarkable is the scale at which this precision was achieved. Many of the ivories are quite small, yet they contain details that would challenge even modern artisans equipped with magnification tools. The consistency across different pieces suggests not random excellence, but a highly developed system of craftsmanship, possibly organized workshops with standardized techniques, specialized tools, and highly trained artisans. This raises a profound question: how did ancient craftsmen achieve such extraordinary levels of detail without modern technology? There is no evidence of advanced machinery, no steel tools comparable to those available today, and no optical aids, such as magnifying lenses. And yet the precision of these carvings rivals, and in some cases surpasses, that of later historical periods. Some researchers suggest that artisans may have used extremely fine bronze or iron tools combined with abrasives such as sand to achieve smooth finishes. Others propose that the work was done under optimal lighting conditions, perhaps with polished surfaces reflecting sunlight to enhance visibility. But even these explanations feel insufficient when confronted with the sheer delicacy of the work. Another intriguing aspect is the structural complexity of certain pieces. Some ivories were clearly designed to be inlaid into furniture or architectural elements. This required not only artistic skill, but also precise measurements and planning. The carved panels had to fit perfectly into wooden frameworks, aligning with other decorative elements to form a cohesive design. Any error in dimension or symmetry would have disrupted the entire composition. Yet the surviving fragments suggest a level of accuracy that implies careful pre-planning, possibly including templates or design schematics concepts we rarely associate with ancient artisans. Furthermore, the artisans demonstrated an advanced understanding of visual composition. Figures are often arranged in balanced, harmonious layouts with careful attention to proportion, symmetry, and negative space. The interplay between raised and recessed surfaces creates a sense of depth and movement, making the carvings appear almost three-dimensional despite their shallow relief. This level of artistic sophistication indicates not only technical skill, but also a deep aesthetic sensibility. And still, we do not know who these artisans were. Were they Assyrian craftsmen trained in foreign styles, or were they imported specialists from Phoenicia or Egypt working within the Assyrian court? The hybrid nature of the designs makes it difficult to assign them to a single cultural origin. It is possible that these ivories were produced in multiple locations and later brought to Nimrud as tribute or trade goods. Alternatively, Nimrud itself may have hosted a cosmopolitan community of artisans, each contributing their own traditions to a shared artistic language. The mystery deepens when considering the context in which the ivories were discovered. Many were found in what archaeologists call ivory rooms, spaces filled with broken fragments as if the objects had been deliberately stored or discarded. Some showed signs of burning, while others were buried beneath collapsed structures. This suggests that they were no longer in active use at the time of the city's destruction. But why were such valuable items abandoned? One theory proposes that they were being recycled. Ivory could be recarved or repurposed, and broken pieces may have been collected for future use. Another possibility is that they were looted from other regions and temporarily stored before being redistributed or reworked. Or perhaps they were simply caught in the chaos of the city's fall, left behind as the Assyrian Empire collapsed under the assault of its enemies. Whatever the case, their burial preserved them for millennia, allowing modern archaeologists to uncover and study them in remarkable detail. And what they have revealed is not just a collection of beautiful objects, but a testament to human ingenuity at its highest level. The Nimrud ivory's cache forces us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient civilizations. It challenges the assumption that technological advancement follows a simple, linear progression. Here we see evidence of a highly developed craft tradition that achieved extraordinary results with limited resources, an achievement that remains difficult to replicate even today. In many ways, these ivories blur the line between art and technology. They are not merely decorative, they are the product of sophisticated techniques, careful planning, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. They represent a convergence of cultural influences, material knowledge, and artistic vision, a combination that is rarely seen even in modern craftsmanship. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Not just how these objects were made, but why such knowledge seems to have faded. The techniques, the tools, the training methods, much of it has been lost to time. What remains are the objects themselves, silent, yet eloquent, inviting us to study them, admire them, and question everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. In the end, the Nimrud ivories are more than artifacts. They are a message from the past, a reminder that human creativity and skill have always had the power to transcend the limits of their age. Do you think the advanced craftsmanship behind the Nimrud ivories was truly lost? Or is there something we still haven't discovered yet? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The grave of the Griffin warrior stands as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the modern era, a find that has not only reshaped our understanding of Bronze Age Greece, but also exposed unsettling gaps in what we think we know about ancient human capability. Discovered in 2015 near the Palace of Nestor in Pylos, this remarkably intact tomb dates back to around 1500 BCE and belonged to a man whose identity has been lost to time, yet whose presence echoes power, status, and mystery. Dubbed the Griffin Warrior after an intricately carved ivory plaque depicting the mythical griffin found among the grave goods, this individual was clearly no ordinary figure. The sheer wealth buried alongside him, over 3,000 artifacts of gold, silver, bronze, and precious stone immediately signaled that this was someone of extraordinary importance. Yet while the quantity of these objects is impressive, it is their quality, and more specifically, their craftsmanship, that transforms this discovery from remarkable to deeply enigmatic. As archaeologists carefully uncovered the grave layer by layer, they revealed not just objects, but a narrative frozen in time. Weapons lay beside finely worked jewelry signet rings, gleamed with encoded symbolism, and seal stones hinted at both administrative authority and artistic expression. The burial itself appeared almost untouched by time or looting, an incredibly rare occurrence in the ancient Mediterranean world. This pristine condition allowed researchers to reconstruct the arrangement of objects with unusual precision, offering a rare glimpse into elite burial practices of early Mycenaean society. However, amid this wealth, one artifact emerged as the focal point of global fascination, a tiny carved gemstone now known as the Pylos combat agate. At just 3.6 centimeters in length, the Pylos combat agate is deceptively small, almost easy to overlook among the dazzling gold and ornate artifacts surrounding it. But when examined closely, it reveals a scene so intricate, so precise, and so shockingly advanced that it challenges the very foundations of archaeological understanding. The stone depicts a violent combat scene between warriors captured in a moment of intense motion and dramatic tension. One warrior drives his weapon into an opponent, while another lies lifeless beneath them. Yet what truly defies belief is the level of detail. Muscles are individually defined, veins subtly traced, and even the curvature of limbs conveys movement with anatomical accuracy that feels almost modern. The proportions are balanced, the perspective is dynamic, and the entire composition conveys a sense of realism that should not, by all accepted timelines, exist in this period. This is where the mystery deepens into something far more profound. According to established historical frameworks, such mastery of human anatomy and naturalistic representation did not emerge until the classical Greek period, nearly a millennium later. Yet the Pylos combat agate exists undeniable and meticulously crafted in a much earlier era. It does not represent a gradual step in artistic evolution. It appears as a leap, as though a future level of artistic knowledge had somehow been inserted into the past. This anomaly forces a reconsideration of linear progress in ancient art, suggesting that either our timeline is incomplete or that knowledge once achieved may have been lost only to be rediscovered centuries later. The question of how such a piece was created remains one of the most debated aspects of the discovery. The level of detail carved into the agate is so fine that it borders on microscopic. Modern scholars examining the artifact often rely on magnification tools to fully appreciate its intricacy, which raises an unavoidable question. How did the original artisan achieve this without such tools? One theory proposes that some form of magnification, perhaps primitive lenses, may have existed far earlier than currently documented. If true, this would imply a level of technological sophistication in the Bronze Age that has yet to be fully recognized. However, there is little direct evidence supporting the widespread use of such optical devices at the time, leaving this hypothesis intriguing but unproven. Another possibility is that the artisan possessed an extraordinary level of skill, honed through years of experience and supported by techniques that have since been lost. The carving of hard stone-like agate requires not only precision, but also immense patience and control, as a single mistake could ruin the entire piece. The fact that the engravings are so consistent and refined suggests a mastery that goes beyond what we typically attribute to this era. It raises the possibility that there were schools of craftsmanship, perhaps even entire traditions of micro-carving, that have left little to no trace in the archaeological record, aside from rare masterpieces like this one. Equally puzzling is the stylistic nature of the scene. The realism displayed in the Pylos combat agate does not align with the more stylized and symbolic forms commonly associated with Mycenaean art. Instead, it exhibits a fluidity and anatomical awareness that feels closer to later Greek sculpture and vase painting. This discrepancy has led some researchers to explore the influence of the Minoan civilization, whose art is often characterized by greater naturalism and movement. The presence of numerous Minoan-style artifacts within the Griffin warrior's grave strengthens this connection, suggesting that the individual may have had direct ties to Crete or was part of a cultural exchange network that facilitated the blending of artistic traditions. This blending of influences adds another layer of mystery to the identity of the Griffin warrior himself. Was he a Mycenaean elite who adopted Minoan aesthetics as a symbol of power and sophistication? Or was he a figure operating at the intersection of two worlds, embodying a transitional moment in Aegean history when cultures were merging, competing, and redefining themselves? The artifacts suggest not just wealth, but access to distant networks, rare materials, and highly skilled artisans. This was not merely a warrior. This was someone embedded in a complex web of political, economic, and cultural relationships. Yet even as these interpretations attempt to provide clarity, the central enigma of the Pylos combat agate remains unresolved. It stands as a silent challenge to our assumptions, a piece of evidence that refuses to fit neatly into established categories. Its existence suggests that the ancient world may have been far more advanced, at least in certain domains, than we are willing to admit. It hints at the possibility of lost knowledge techniques, tools, or artistic philosophies that flourished briefly and then vanished, leaving behind only fragments for us to puzzle over. Beyond the agate, the grave itself reinforces this sense of wonder and uncertainty. The untouched nature of the burial provides a rare and invaluable snapshot of a single moment in time, allowing researchers to study not just individual objects, but their relationships to one another. The positioning of weapons, the placement of jewelry, the symbolic significance of certain items all contribute to a deeper understanding of how this individual was perceived in life and honored in death. And yet, despite this wealth of information, the man himself remains anonymous, his name and story lost to history. In the end, the grave of the Griffin warrior is more than a discovery, it is a confrontation. It confronts us with the limits of our knowledge, the fragility of historical narratives, and the enduring mystery of human creativity. At its heart lies a tiny stone, carved with impossible precision, whispering of a past that is far more complex, far more sophisticated, and far more enigmatic than we have ever imagined. What do you think is the Pylos combat agate evidence of a lost technique, or proof that ancient humans were more advanced than we imagine? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden within the ancient quarry of Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon lies one of the most astonishing relics of human ambition, the birthing rock, also known as Hajar el-Hibla. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than a massive, unfinished block of limestone still partially attached to the bedrock from which it was carved. But this first impression is deeply misleading. The longer one studies this monolith, the more it transforms from a simple quarry remnant into something far more profound, a silent witness to a level of engineering precision that continues to challenge even modern understanding. Stretching over 20 meters in length and weighing close to 1,000 tons, the birthing rock is among the largest stones ever cut by human hands. Its sheer scale is overwhelming, but size alone does not define its mystery. Across the ancient world, humanity has demonstrated the ability to manipulate enormous masses of stone. From the towering pyramids of Egypt to the cyclopean walls of ancient Peru, the movement of large stones, while impressive, is no longer considered impossible. And yet the birthing rock stands apart, not because of how big it is, but because of how precisely it was shaped. This precision is where the true enigma begins. When examining the surfaces of the birthing rock, one is immediately struck by their remarkable uniformity. The plains extend across vast distances with a consistency that feels almost unnatural. There are no obvious dips, no chaotic irregularities, no signs of careless extraction. Instead, the surface appears controlled, deliberate, and calculated, as if every centimeter was shaped with a clear intention in mind. The edges are sharply defined, forming straight lines that remain coherent across the entire length of the stone. These are not the random results of brute force. They are the signatures of methodical craftsmanship. Even more intriguing is the subtle texture of the stone. In many areas, faint linear patterns can be observed, marks that suggest repeated consistent action rather than sporadic impact. These patterns hint at a process, a technique applied with rhythm and control. They do not resemble the chaotic scars left by uncontrolled hammering. Instead, they evoke something closer to machining, an unsettling comparison considering the technological limitations we typically associate with the ancient world. And this is where the central question emerges. With undeniable force, how was such precision achieved? Traditional archaeological explanations point to tools such as stone hammers, bronze chisels, and later iron implements. These tools, while effective in shaping smaller objects, present serious limitations when scaled up to a monolith of this magnitude. Limestone, while softer than granite, still requires significant effort to shape, especially when aiming for flatness across such a large surface. Manual chiseling tends to introduce small inconsistencies. Over short distances, these imperfections may be negligible, but over 20 meters, they accumulate, resulting in surfaces that deviate noticeably from perfect planes. Yet the birthing rock defies this expectation. One possibility is that ancient workers employed advanced abrasion techniques. By using sand, essentially a natural abrasive, combined with water and repetitive motion, it is theoretically possible to grind stone into smoother forms. This method could explain the relative smoothness of the surface. However, abrasion alone struggles to account for the sharpness of the edges and the apparent straightness of the lines. Maintaining geometric precision, while relying solely on abrasion, would require an extraordinary level of control, along with precise measurement systems to guide the process. This leads to another possibility that the builders possessed a far more sophisticated understanding of geometry and leveling than we often assume. They may have used taut chords, reference frames, and carefully aligned markers to guide their work. By constantly checking their progress against these references, they could have maintained a high degree of accuracy. But even if such systems were in place, the execution would have required incredible discipline. Each worker would need to follow exact procedures, ensuring that no deviation, however small, was allowed to propagate across the surface. There is also the question of tools. While evidence is limited, it is possible that ancient craftsmen had access to techniques or materials that have not survived the passage of time. Hardened iron tools, for example, could achieve a sharper edge than commonly assumed, especially if repeatedly maintained and refined. There may have also been specialized tools designed specifically for large-scale stone-cutting tools that left behind the consistent patterns we now observe, but have since disappeared from the archaeological record. Yet even with improved tools and methods, the scale of the birthing rock introduces a level of difficulty that cannot be ignored. Precision is inherently easier to achieve on small objects. As size increases, maintaining uniformity becomes exponentially more challenging. Every small error becomes magnified, every deviation more difficult to correct. And still, the birthing rock appears to resist this natural tendency toward imperfection. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of its precision is the sense of intentional design it conveys. This was not a block roughly cut and later refined. It appears to have been shaped from the very beginning with a specific purpose in mind. The flatness of its surfaces suggests that it was meant to fit seamlessly with other stones, forming part of a larger architectural system where tolerances were critically important. This interpretation gains strength when one considers the nearby temple of Jupiter Baalbek, where massive stones, some weighing nearly as much, were successfully transported and assembled with astonishing accuracy. The joints between these stones are so tight that even today, inserting a blade between them can be difficult. And yet, despite this apparent mastery, the birthing rock was never completed, never transported, never used. This contradiction lies at the heart of its mystery. If the builders were capable of achieving such precision, why abandon the project? Was the stone simply too large, even for them? Did they discover a flaw, an internal crack that compromised its integrity? Or did their plans change, rendering this monumental effort unnecessary? Whatever the answer, the birthing rock remains frozen in a moment of suspended intention. It is a fragment of a process that was interrupted, a glimpse into a system of knowledge that we do not fully possess. Its surfaces, smooth and precise, are not just physical features. They are clues, evidence of a method that once existed but has not been completely understood. In many ways, the birthing rock challenges our perception of ancient capability. It forces us to reconsider the boundaries we place on past civilizations. Were they truly limited by the tools we believe they had? Or have we underestimated their ingenuity, their ability to solve complex problems with methods that do not fit neatly into our modern framework? The truth may lie somewhere in between. It is possible that the builders of Baalbek combined simple tools with sophisticated techniques, achieving results that appear extraordinary precisely because we do not fully grasp the processes behind them. Or perhaps there are aspects of their knowledge, subtle, practical, and deeply refined, that have simply been lost to time. In the end, the birthing rock is more than a massive stone left behind in a quarry. It is a paradox carved into the earth, a structure that embodies both immense power and delicate precision. It stands as a reminder that history is not a straight line of progress, but a complex tapestry of knowledge gained, lost, and sometimes rediscovered. And as we stand before it, examining its perfectly cut surfaces, we are left with a question that echoes across centuries, not just how it was made, but what else might have been possible for those who created it. Do you think the birthing rock is evidence of ancient technology far beyond our current understanding, or simply an unfinished project abandoned due to practical limitations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden within the dense woodlands of southeastern Oklahoma, the Heavener runestone stands as one of the most controversial and enigmatic artifacts in North America. Discovered in the early 20th century, this unassuming slab of sandstone bears a series of carved symbols that have ignited decades of debate among historians, archaeologists, linguists, and enthusiasts alike. At first glance, the markings appear to resemble runes, characters from ancient Scandinavian writing systems, immediately raising a provocative question: could this be evidence that Norse explorers ventured deep into the North American continent long before Christopher Columbus? Or is the stone simply a clever fabrication, a product of imagination rather than history? To understand the mystery, one must first consider the context of its discovery. The stone was reportedly found in 1923 by a young boy named Everett Concy, though some accounts suggest it may have been known to locals even earlier. Positioned upright and partially embedded in the ground, the stone did not appear to have been deliberately placed in modern times. Its weathered surface and seemingly aged carvings lent an air of authenticity that quickly captured public attention. Soon, scholars began to examine the inscription more closely, and the debate over its origin began. The inscription itself is at the heart of the mystery. The characters carved into the stone resemble runes from the Scandinavian Elder Futhark or Younger Futhark alphabets used by Norse peoples during the Viking Age. Some interpretations suggest that the inscription reads Glomedal, which could refer to a valley in Norway. If this translation is accurate, it would imply that Norse explorers not only reached North America, as confirmed by archaeological evidence at Lanceau Meadows in Newfoundland, but traveled far inland, possibly navigating rivers such as the Mississippi and its tributaries to reach what is now Oklahoma. However, this interpretation is far from universally accepted. Critics argue that the inscription is inconsistent with authentic Norse runic writing. Certain characters appear to be incorrectly formed or mixed from different runic systems that would not have been used together historically. This inconsistency raises doubts about the stone's authenticity and suggests that the inscription may have been created by someone with only partial or superficial knowledge of runes. This brings us to the most compelling and contentious aspect of the Heavener runestone, the question of whether it is genuine or a hoax. The real versus fake debate has persisted for decades, with strong arguments on both sides. Supporters of the stone's authenticity point to several factors. First, they argue that the weathering of the inscription appears natural and consistent with great age. The grooves of the carvings do not show obvious signs of modern tools, and the patina within the cuts suggests long-term exposure to the elements. Additionally, the stone's remote location in a forested area makes it less likely, in their view, that it was created as a deliberate hoax intended for public attention. Why would someone go to the trouble of carving a runestone and placing it in such an isolated spot, especially at a time when Norse exploration of North America was not widely accepted or popularized? Furthermore, proponents argue that history has repeatedly shown that accepted narratives can be incomplete or incorrect. The discovery of Norse settlements in Newfoundland was once dismissed as legend, yet it is now firmly established. Could the Heavener runestone represent another such case, a piece of evidence that challenges our understanding of how far Viking explorers traveled? On the other hand, skeptics present equally compelling counter-arguments. One of the strongest criticisms is the lack of corroborating evidence. If Norse explorers had indeed traveled deep into the North American interior, one would expect to find additional artifact settlements or at least traces of their presence along the way. Yet despite extensive archaeological research, no such evidence has been conclusively identified in the region surrounding the Heavener runestone. Moreover, the linguistic inconsistencies in the inscription cannot be easily dismissed. Experts in runology have pointed out that the mixture of rune styles and the ambiguous translation suggest a modern origin. It is possible that the carver was inspired by runic alphabets but did not fully understand their proper usage. This scenario aligns with the idea that the stone was created in the 19th or early 20th century, perhaps by European immigrants familiar with Norse culture, or by individuals intrigued by the romantic notion of Viking exploration. There is also the possibility that the stone was never intended as a hoax in the traditional sense. Instead, it may have been a form of personal expression, artistic creation, or even a marker with meaning known only to its creator. Over time, as interest in the stone grew, it may have been reinterpreted and elevated into a historical mystery far beyond its original purpose. Another important factor in the debate is the absence of precise dating. Unlike organic materials, stone cannot be directly dated using methods such as radiocarbon analysis. While techniques exist to estimate the age of carvings based on weathering and lichen growth, these methods are imprecise and often subject to interpretation. As a result, there is no definitive scientific consensus on when the inscription was made, leaving the question of authenticity unresolved. The Heavener runestone also occupies a unique place in the cultural imagination. It represents more than just a carved stone. It embodies the human fascination with exploration, discovery, and the unknown. Whether real or fake, it challenges us to question established narratives and consider alternative possibilities. It blurs the line between history and myth, inviting both skepticism and wonder. In many ways, the enduring mystery of the Heavener runestone is precisely what gives it its power. If it were conclusively proven to be authentic, it would rewrite a significant chapter of history. If it were definitively exposed as a hoax, it would still remain a fascinating example of how easily narratives can take hold and persist. But as long as the truth remains uncertain, the stone continues to provoke curiosity and debate. Ultimately, the question of whether the Heavener runestone is real or fake may never be fully answered. It stands as a silent witness to a mystery that has endured for over a century, its carved symbols offering no clear explanation, only more questions. Was it left behind by Norse explorers who ventured farther than we ever imagined? Or was it created by modern hands, inspired by ancient legends? The answer lies hidden within the stone itself, waiting perhaps forever to be uncovered. What do you think? In your opinion, is the Heavener runestone real evidence of ancient Viking explorers or just an elaborate hoax? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Along the banks of the Nile River, where one of the world's greatest civilizations rose and flourished, there existed a structure both deceptively simple and profoundly powerful, the Nilometer. At first glance, it may appear to be nothing more than a stone well or a stepped shaft descending into the earth. Yet in reality, the Nilometer was one of the most critical instruments in ancient Egypt, a device that measured not only water levels, but the very fate of an empire. Its readings determined agricultural success or failure, dictated taxation, influenced political stability, and were even interpreted as messages from the divine. To understand the Nilometer is to glimpse the intersection of science, engineering, religion, and governance in one of history's most remarkable societies. The Nile River was the lifeline of ancient Egypt, its annual floods bringing fertile silt that transformed arid land into productive farmland. However, this flooding was a double-edged sword. If the waters rose, too little crops would fail due to drought. If they rose too much, entire settlements could be destroyed. The survival of millions depended on accurately predicting and interpreting these fluctuations. This is where the Nilometer became indispensable. By carefully measuring the height of the Nile during the flood season, ancient Egyptians could forecast the coming harvest and adjust their economic and administrative strategies accordingly. The stakes were immense, and the need for precision was absolute. What makes the Nilometer particularly extraordinary and perhaps most mysterious is its engineering. Far from being a crude measuring device, it was a sophisticated system designed with remarkable foresight and technical ingenuity. There were several variations of Nilometers across Egypt, including vertical wells with central columns, staircases descending into water-filled shafts, and structures connected to the river through underground channels. Despite their differences in form, they all shared a common goal to produce reliable, stable, and accurate measurements of the Nile's water level. The Nilometer on Rhoda Island in Cairo stands as one of the finest surviving examples of this technology. Constructed during the early Islamic period, but based on much older designs, it consists of a deep, cylindrical well connected to the Nile via hidden tunnels. At the center of this well stands a stone column, meticulously carved with graduated markings. These markings were not arbitrary. They represented carefully calibrated units that corresponded to specific water levels and, by extension, to predicted agricultural outcomes. The precision of these inscriptions suggests a deep understanding of both hydrology and measurement systems knowledge that must have been accumulated and refined over centuries. One of the most ingenious aspects of the Nilometer's design lies in how it isolates measurement from environmental disturbances. Rather than allowing direct turbulent river water to interfere with readings, the system channels water into the measuring chamber through narrow underground passages. This ensures that the water entering the Nilometer rises and falls smoothly unaffected by surface waves, debris, or sudden fluctuations. In modern terms, it functions almost like a natural damping system, stabilizing the input to produce more accurate data. Such a concept demonstrates a level of engineering sophistication that is astonishing for its time. Equally impressive is the geometric precision of the structure itself. The wells were often perfectly cylindrical, the staircases symmetrically aligned, and the columns positioned with exact centrality. This was not merely aesthetic, it was essential for maintaining consistent measurements. Any deviation in structure could lead to errors in reading water levels, which in turn could result in disastrous miscalculations for taxation and food distribution. The ancient engineers who designed these systems clearly understood the importance of standardization and repeatability principles that underpin modern scientific instrumentation. Another layer of mystery surrounds the calibration of these devices. How did ancient Egyptians ensure that their Nilometers remained accurate over decades or even centuries? The Nile is not a static system. Its flow can change due to climatic variations, sediment buildup, and geological shifts. Yet historical records suggest that Nilometer readings remained reliable indicators of agricultural outcomes for long periods. This implies that there must have been methods of recalibration or adjustment, though no definitive records of such procedures have survived. It raises the possibility that a body of technical knowledge, perhaps guarded by a specialized class of priest engineers, has been lost to history. The integration of the Nilometer into religious and administrative life adds yet another dimension to its significance. The responsibility of reading and interpreting its measurements often fell to priests who were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people. The Nile itself was associated with the god Hapi, and its flooding was considered a divine blessing. As such, the data produced by the Nilometer was not merely scientific, it was sacred. Announcements of water levels could influence public morale, reinforce religious beliefs, and legitimize political authority. In this context, the Nilometer becomes not just a tool of measurement, but a symbol of cosmic order and divine favor. Despite centuries of study, many questions about the Nilometer remain unanswered. The exact methods used to design and calibrate these structures are still not fully understood. The consistency of their measurements across different locations suggests the existence of a standardized system, yet no comprehensive documentation of such a system has been found. Furthermore, the knowledge required to construct these devices with such precision raises intriguing questions about the level of technological advancement in ancient Egypt. Were these skills widely distributed or confined to a select group of experts, and how much of this knowledge has been irretrievably lost? In the end, the Nilometer stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring quest to understand and control the natural world. It embodies a blend of practical necessity and intellectual achievement, of empirical observation and spiritual interpretation. While modern technology has long surpassed its capabilities, the principles underlying its design, precision, stability, and the integration of data into decision-making remain as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. The Nilometer is more than an ancient artifact. It is a window into a civilization that in many ways was far more advanced than we often assume. As we look upon these silent stone structures, we are reminded that even the simplest tools can carry profound significance. The Nilometer, with its quiet measurements and hidden complexities, continues to challenge our understanding of the past. Was it merely a clever device for tracking water levels, or does it represent a deeper, more sophisticated system of knowledge that we have yet to fully comprehend? The answer, much like the rising waters of the Nile, may still lie just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. What do you think? Do you believe the Nilometer was just a simple measuring tool or an advanced ancient technology far beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Proleek dolmen, located near County Louth, stands as one of the most striking and enigmatic megalithic monuments in the ancient world. Dating back to approximately 3000 BCE, this portal tomb appears deceptively simple. At first glance, a massive capstone delicately balanced atop 3 upright stones. Yet the longer one observes it, the more unsettling and profound the questions become. How did a prehistoric society, lacking metal tools, advanced machinery, or written engineering knowledge, manage to construct such a structure with astonishing precision? And perhaps more importantly, what does this reveal about their true capabilities? At the heart of the mystery lies the dolmen's most defining feature, its enormous capstone, estimated to weigh between 30 and 40 tons. This colossal slab is not merely placed on top of the supporting stones, it is balanced with such precision that its weight appears evenly distributed across 3 relatively slender uprights. The visual effect is almost paradoxical. The structure looks both fragile and immovable, at the same time as if it exists in a delicate equilibrium that defies intuition. Despite thousands of years of exposure to wind, rain, and shifting ground conditions, the dolmen remains standing, its balance seemingly untouched by time. This leads directly to the most compelling and unresolved aspect of the Proleek dolmen, its construction. While archaeologists and historians have proposed several theories, none fully account for the level of precision and control evident in the final result. One commonly suggested method involves the use of earthen ramps. According to this theory, ancient builders may have gradually piled up soil and stones to create a sloped platform, allowing them to drag the capstone upward, using ropes, wooden rollers, and coordinated human effort. Once the stone was in position, the supporting uprights would be carefully placed and the surrounding earth removed. While plausible in principle, this explanation raises further questions. moving a stone of such immense weight would require not only extraordinary manpower, but also a sophisticated understanding of balance and load distribution knowledge that is rarely attributed to Neolithic societies. Another hypothesis suggests the use of lever systems. Wooden beams could have been employed as primitive cranes, with the capstone lifted incrementally and supported at each stage until it reached its final height. However, this method introduces its own set of challenges. The structural integrity of wooden tools under such extreme weight is questionable, and the margin for error would have been incredibly small. A slight miscalculation could have resulted in catastrophic collapse, yet there is no evidence of failed attempts or reconstruction at the site. Everything about the Proleek dolmen suggests a single successful execution. What makes the mystery even more intriguing is the precision of the final placement. It is not enough to simply raise a massive stone. It must be positioned with exacting accuracy so that its center of mass aligns perfectly with the supporting points. This implies a level of spatial awareness and practical physics that goes far beyond trial and error. The builders would have needed to understand, at least intuitively, how weight behaves, how balance is achieved, and how slight adjustments can determine the stability of an entire structure. Such knowledge, while fundamental to modern engineering, is not typically associated with prehistoric cultures, yet the Proleek dolmen stands as undeniable evidence that they possessed it. Adding to the complexity is the absence of binding materials. Unlike later constructions that rely on mortar joints or metal reinforcements, the dolmen is held together purely by gravity and balance. This minimalist approach amplifies the difficulty of the task. Every element must be perfectly aligned, every surface carefully matched, and every decision irreversible. Once the capstone is placed, there is no opportunity for correction. The fact that it has remained stable for over 5 millennia suggests that the builders achieved near-perfect execution on their first attempt. Beyond the technical challenges, there is also the question of logistics. Transporting a stone of this magnitude would have required careful planning and coordination. The quarry site, the route taken, and the tools used all remain subjects of speculation. Some researchers believe that large teams of workers used wooden sledges and lubricated pathways to move the stone across the landscape. Others propose that seasonal conditions such as frozen ground or wet terrain may have been exploited to reduce friction. Yet even with these considerations, the scale of the operation remains staggering. It would have been a monumental undertaking for any society, let alone one operating without modern technology. The enduring mystery of the Proleek dolmen's construction challenges our assumptions about prehistoric people. It suggests that they were not merely surviving in a primitive world, but actively shaping it with ingenuity and purpose. Their achievements hint at a form of knowledge that was deeply practical, perhaps passed down through generations in ways that left no written record. This knowledge, while lost to us, is preserved in the stones themselves, a silent testament to human capability. Of course, the dolmen is not only an engineering puzzle, it is also a cultural and spiritual artifact. Many scholars believe it served as a burial site, a place where the dead were honored and remembered. Others see it as a ceremonial structure, possibly aligned with celestial events or used in rituals that we can no longer fully comprehend. Local folklore adds another layer of intrigue, with tales of giants constructing the monument or of visitors gaining good luck by successfully tossing a stone onto its capstone. These stories, while not scientifically verifiable, reflect the awe that the structure has inspired across generations. In the end, the Proleek dolmen remains an open question, a convergence of engineering brilliance, cultural significance, and enduring mystery. Its construction, in particular, stands as one of the most compelling unsolved problems in the study of ancient architecture. Every theory offers partial insight, but fails to capture the full reality of what must have occurred thousands of years ago. Perhaps the true explanation lies not in a single technique, but in a combination of methods refined through experience and guided by an understanding of the natural world that we have yet to fully appreciate. Standing before the Proleek dolmen today, one cannot help but feel a sense of humility. It is a reminder that the past is not as simple as we often imagine, and that the people who came before us were capable of achievements that still challenge our understanding. The stones do not speak, but their silence is filled with meaning. They invite us to question, to imagine, and to recognize that even in an age without machines, the human mind was already capable of extraordinary things. What do you think about the mystery of the Proleek dolmen? Is it simply the result of ancient engineering we still don't fully understand, or could there be a lost construction method behind it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the vast plains of southwestern Iran, far from the towering monuments of Egypt and the well-preserved ruins of Mesopotamia, lies a site that at first glance appears almost unremarkable, a series of low-weathered mounds stretching across the land. This is Anshan, known today as Talayotic, once one of the most powerful capitals of the ancient Elamite civilization. Unlike other great cities of antiquity, Anshan does not impress with grand stone temples or towering columns. It does not dominate the horizon like Babylon or Persepolis. Instead, it seems to dissolve into the earth itself, as if time has slowly and deliberately erased its presence. And yet beneath this quiet and almost invisible surface lies a city that once shaped the political and cultural landscape of the ancient Near East, a city whose story is still incomplete, fragmented, and filled with unanswered questions. Anshan was not a peripheral settlement. It was a vast urban center covering hundreds of hectares with evidence of organized planning, defensive structures, and administrative complexity. At its height, it rivaled the great cities of Mesopotamia, standing as a central pillar of the Elamite civilization, a culture that existed for millennia alongside Sumer Akkad and later Babylon. Archaeological findings suggest a thriving society with trade connections, craftsmanship, and governance systems that were far more sophisticated than once assumed. The city's significance extended beyond its physical boundaries, embedding itself deeply into the identity of the region. This is perhaps most clearly reflected in its association with Cyrus Jiji, who would later become the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. His adoption of the title King of Anshan was not incidental. It was a deliberate invocation of an ancient and respected seat of power. In that moment, Anshan was not just a place. It was a symbol, a legacy, a source of legitimacy that connected emerging empires to a deeper past. Yet despite its immense importance, Anshan presents a striking contradiction. For a city that once held such influence, its physical remains are astonishingly subtle. There are no grand palaces rising from the ground, no monumental inscriptions declaring its glory, no vast temples preserved in stone. Instead, what remains are layers of earth, fragments of mud brick, and scattered artifacts, traces that hint at greatness but refuse to fully reveal it. Much of the city was constructed using mud brick, a material that, while practical, is vulnerable to erosion over long periods of time. Centuries of wind, seasonal rains, and environmental exposure have gradually reduced its architecture to indistinct forms, blending human construction with natural landscape. However, this explanation only partially accounts for the disappearance. Other ancient cities built with similar materials still retain more recognizable layouts and structures. At Anshan, the absence feels deeper, more complete, as if the city has not only decayed, but has been quietly absorbed back into the earth. This sense of incompleteness is further intensified by the limited understanding of the Elamite civilization itself. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, whose histories are preserved through extensive written records and monumental architecture, Elam remains enigmatic. Its language has not been fully deciphered, and many of its inscriptions remain obscure. This lack of clarity creates a barrier between modern researchers and the people who once inhabited Anshan. We can see the outlines of their world, but not the details. We know they built, traded, governed, and worshipped, but how they experienced their lives, what they believed at a deeper level, and how they understood their place in the world remain largely unknown. Anshan, as one of their principal cities, becomes a focal point of this mystery, a place where the gaps in knowledge are most deeply felt. But it is in the story of Anshan's decline that the mystery becomes truly profound. Unlike many ancient cities, whose destruction is marked by violence, burned layers of ash, collapsed walls, mass graves, Anshan offers no clear evidence of a catastrophic end. There is no definitive sign of invasion, no widespread destruction that signals a sudden collapse. Instead, the city appears to have faded gradually, its prominence diminishing over time until it was eventually abandoned or transformed beyond recognition. This quiet disappearance is deeply unsettling. It challenges the common narrative of history, where great cities fall through dramatic events, wars, conquests, or natural disasters. Anshan does not follow this pattern. Its decline is subtle, almost invisible, leaving behind a silence that is far more difficult to interpret. One possible explanation lies in environmental change. The regions surrounding Anshan may have experienced shifts in climate that affected its agricultural base. Even slight changes in rainfall patterns or water availability could have had significant consequences for a large urban population. Crops may have failed more frequently, water sources may have become unreliable, and the delicate balance that sustained the city could have been disrupted. Over time, these pressures might have led to gradual depopulation as people moved elsewhere in search of more stable conditions. However, environmental factors alone rarely tell the full story. Cities often adapt, innovate, and endure in the face of such challenges. Another possibility is political transformation. As new powers emerged in the region, the importance of Anshan may have declined. The rise of the Persian Empire, led by Cyrus Jijeh, marked a significant shift in the political landscape. While Cyrus embraced the title of King of Anshan, the administrative and political centers of his empire were established elsewhere, in cities like Pasargadae and later Persepolis. This suggests that Anshan, while symbolically important, may have lost its practical relevance. Power had moved, and with it, resources, population, and influence. In such a scenario, Anshan would not have been destroyed, it would have been left behind, gradually fading as attention shifted to new centers of authority. There is also the possibility of cultural absorption. Rather than experiencing a clear end, Anshan may have been integrated into the expanding Persian world. Its people, traditions, and institutions could have been absorbed into a larger imperial system, losing their distinct identity over time. This type of transformation is difficult to detect archaeologically. It does not leave behind dramatic evidence. Instead, it manifests as a gradual blending, where one culture dissolves into another. In this sense, Anshan may not have truly disappeared, it may still exist, hidden within the foundations of later civilizations, its legacy continuing in ways that are not immediately visible. And yet, even when these theories are considered together, the mystery remains unresolved. There is no single explanation that fully accounts for the disappearance of such a significant city. The lack of definitive evidence leaves room for speculation, and it is within this uncertainty that Anshan becomes truly fascinating. It is not just a site of ruins. It is a question and absence that invites inquiry. It forces us to confront the possibility that not all historical events are clearly recorded or easily understood. Today, much of Anshan remains buried. Large portions of the site have yet to be excavated, lying beneath layers of earth that have accumulated over thousands of years. Each new excavation has the potential to reveal critical information inscriptions that could clarify the Elamite language, architectural remains that could redefine our understanding of the city's layout, artifacts that could illuminate daily life. Until these discoveries are made, Anshan will continue to exist in a state of partial revelation, offering glimpses of its past while withholding its full story. In the end, Anshan stands as a powerful reminder of the fragility of even the greatest civilizations. It shows that a city can be vast, influential, and central to history and still vanish without a clear trace. Its story is not one of dramatic collapse, but of gradual fading, of quiet transformation, of time erasing what once seemed permanent. And perhaps that is the most unsettling mystery of all. Not that Anshan was destroyed, but that it simply disappeared, leaving behind only silence and the enduring question of how something so important could be lost so completely. What do you think really happened to Anshan? Was it abandoned slowly, or is there still a hidden event we have yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden on a quiet hillside near the town of Los Lunas in New Mexico, far from the noise of modern civilization, lies a massive basalt boulder that has sparked one of the most enduring and controversial debates in American archaeology. Known as the Los Lunas Decalogue Stone, this unassuming rock bears an inscription that at first glance seems impossible. Carved into its surface are lines of text resembling ancient Hebrew, specifically a version of the Ten Commandments. If authentic, this stone could represent one of the most astonishing discoveries in human history, evidence that Old World travelers reached North America long before the voyages of Christopher Columbus. But if it is a forgery, it stands as one of the most convincing and mysterious hoaxes ever created. The stone itself is not hidden in a cave or buried beneath layers of earth. Instead, it sits exposed on the slope of hidden mountain, accessible yet strangely overlooked for centuries. The inscription covering a flattened face of the boulder appears to have been intentionally carved to be legible, suggesting that whoever created it wanted it to be seen and perhaps understood. The text has been interpreted as a condensed form of the Ten Commandments, written in a script resembling Paleo-Hebrew, a writing system used in the ancient Near East over 2,000 years ago. The implications of such a find are staggering. It suggests not only transoceanic contact in antiquity, but also the presence of literate religious individuals capable of preserving and transmitting sacred texts across vast distances. Yet, from the moment the stone entered academic awareness, skepticism has shadowed every claim of authenticity. At the center of this controversy lies the most critical and unresolved question: how old is the inscription? The answer to this single question determines everything, whether the stone is a revolutionary archaeological artifact or merely a clever fabrication. Those who argue for the stone's antiquity often point to the physical characteristics of the inscription itself. The grooves carved into the basalt show signs of weathering with softened edges and mineral deposits suggesting long-term exposure to the elements. Supporters claim that such erosion could not have occurred in just a few decades or even a century, implying that the carving must be far older. Additionally, certain letter forms appear archaic and inconsistent with modern Hebrew, hinting at a deeper historical origin. These proponents argue that a forger, especially one working in the 19th or early 20th century, would have been unlikely to reproduce such obscure and ancient script forms with convincing irregularity. However, critics counter that weathering alone is not a reliable indicator of age. Environmental factors, such as wind-sand moisture and temperature fluctuations, can accelerate erosion, potentially giving a relatively recent carving the appearance of great antiquity. Moreover, the stone's exposed location means it has been subjected to continuous natural processes that could obscure the true age of the inscription. Without controlled excavation or stratigraphic context, the surface wear cannot be conclusively tied to a specific time period. Even more troubling for proponents of authenticity is the linguistic inconsistency found within the text. Scholars who have studied the inscription closely note that the letter forms do not belong neatly to a single historical phase of Hebrew writing. Instead, they appear to be a mixture of styles from different periods, some resembling Paleo-Hebrew, others closer to later scripts. This blending of forms raises a critical question: would an ancient scribe mix writing conventions in such a way, or does this suggest a modern individual piecing together knowledge from various sources? To skeptics, this inconsistency is one of the strongest pieces of evidence pointing toward a hoax. The issue of accessibility also complicates the debate. The stone is not located in a remote, untouched wilderness, but rather in an area that has been traversed by locals, travelers, and explorers for generations. Some accounts suggest that the inscription was known to local residents as early as the 19th century, though these claims are difficult to verify. If the carving had existed for thousands of years, why are there no clear historical records, indigenous references, or earlier documentation? The absence of corroborating evidence weakens the argument for great antiquity. Yet the possibility of a hoax introduces its own set of mysteries. If the stone is indeed a modern creation, who made it, and why creating such an inscription would require not only knowledge of ancient Hebrew, but also the physical effort to carve deeply into hard basalt using tools available at the time. This is no casual act of vandalism. The scale, effort, and apparent attention to detail suggest a deliberate and sustained project. But no individual has ever been definitively identified as the creator, and no records have surfaced describing the carving process. The anonymity of the supposed forger adds an unexpected layer of intrigue. Furthermore, if the inscription is a forgery, it is an unusually sophisticated one. It predates widespread public access to detailed studies of Paleo-Hebrew, raising questions about how a forger could have obtained accurate information. While it is possible that a well-educated individual with access to academic materials could have produced the text, the lack of clear motive remains puzzling. Was it intended as a prank, a religious statement, or an attempt to mislead future generations? Or could it have been created by someone who genuinely believed in an alternative history of ancient exploration? Another dimension of the dating mystery lies in the absence of archaeological context. Unlike artifacts discovered in controlled excavations, the Los Lunas Decalogue stone exists in isolation. There are no associated tools, habitation remains, or cultural materials that might help establish a timeline. in archaeology context, is everything. Without it, even the most intriguing object becomes difficult to interpret. The stone stands alone, disconnected from any broader narrative, making it nearly impossible to anchor in time with certainty. Modern scientific techniques, which might otherwise help resolve the question, face significant limitations in this case. Radiocarbon dating cannot be applied directly to stone, and attempts to analyze patina or mineral deposits have yielded inconclusive results. The lack of definitive scientific evidence leaves the debate suspended between possibility and doubt. Each new analysis seems only to deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. What makes the question of age so compelling is not merely its academic significance, but its broader implications. If the stone is genuinely ancient, it challenges the established timeline of human exploration and suggests that transoceanic contact occurred far earlier than currently accepted. It would imply that ancient civilizations possessed the knowledge and capability to navigate vast oceans, carrying with them not only goods, but also language, religion, and culture. Such a discovery would force historians to reconsider long-held assumptions about the limits of ancient travel. On the other hand, if the stone is a forgery, it reveals something equally fascinating about human nature: the desire to rewrite history, to leave behind a mystery that future generations cannot easily unravel. In this sense, the Los Lunas Decalogue stone becomes less about ancient travelers and more about modern imagination. It demonstrates how a single object, placed in the right context, can challenge established narratives and spark decades of debate. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the dating mystery is that it resists resolution. Despite years of study, analysis, and argument, no consensus has emerged. The evidence remains ambiguous, open to interpretation, and deeply contested. Each piece of data can be read in multiple ways, supporting both the case for authenticity and the case for forgery. This ambiguity is what keeps the stone relevant, drawing researchers, skeptics, and enthusiasts back to the hillside again and again. In the end, the Los Lunas Decalogue stone exists in a liminal space between history and myth. It is neither fully accepted nor completely dismissed. Its true age, whether ancient or modern, remains one of its most enduring secrets. And perhaps that is precisely what gives it power. For as long as the question remains unanswered, the stone will continue to provoke curiosity, inspire speculation, and challenge our understanding of the past. Is it a forgotten relic of an ancient journey across unknown seas? Or is it a carefully crafted illusion designed to blur the line between truth and fiction? Until definitive evidence emerges, the Los Lunas Decalogue stone will remain what it has always been: a silent enigma, carved in stone, waiting for someone to finally uncover its true story. What do you think? Is the Los Lunas Decalogue stone truly an ancient artifact, or just a sophisticated hoax? Share your thoughts in the comments below.